Everybody, this is the Harbinger Report, and I'm your host, John Bell. Thanks for coming for another episode. Tonight, I've been trying to decide what to do for a topic for a while, and I got inundated this morning with videos of friends of mine sending me about new footage about 9/11. So that happens to be a topic that I know a lot about. So I figured it's time to do an episode on that. Now there are some directions and some things I tie into this. I've got my own theory and take on the situation that's different than anyone else I've ever heard report on the topic. So just bear with me. But I try to view things through a different lens with my background and training as well. And I hope that that leads to something beneficial for people. But anyway, on the topic of 9/11. So obviously, it's funny because the current pandemic has been the most decisive, divisive thing, lacking the word, something that's separated and divided people the most in recent times, even friends and family. I've found, it's a very divisive issue, and it causes a lot of problem. There's a lot of propaganda out there, a lot of false truths, and and you're considered a conspiracy theorist or a bad person if you have a brain and think for yourself or challenge the status quo in mainstream media in any kind of way. And I heartily disagree with that. Even if I'm wrong on my points, I have a right as an American and with freedom of speech, if that still exists, does it? I have a right to give my opinion. Now, that doesn't mean that other people have to agree with my opinion. They don't have to see things the way I do. But I do think it's important to point out different sides that are contrary to many views and what people may or may not have been told or led to believe. One thing I'll absolutely start off as a premise is I don't understand. The United States was founded on not trusting government, not liking government. All right. See, the stronger government is, the weaker you are. Period. End of story. Drop the mic. That's why the vision of America was more empowerment to the people, less government, less power, less centralized government, and more checks and balances, especially with state governments and rule. All right. That's why we have separation of the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and the executive branch. By the way, executive orders of presidents are really unconstitutional. The entire reason why we have a separation between the legislative branch and the executive branch is so that the executive branch isn't enacting laws on its own. That's the whole purpose. The entire purpose. So when you have presidents that all of a sudden say, now I have executive powers to make executive laws. Yeah, where did that come from? Because our Constitution was written so that that would never happen. And now look at the abuse of power. Oh, Congress won't give us more power? Ah, we'll just write and give ourselves more power. Congress won't give us laws we want. We'll just write them and make our own. Our country was designed to be against that. It was not ever to have that as a system of rule in our country. But yet we've come so accustomed to it that we just accept it. Like my favorite adage of the little boiling frog that boils to death in the pot. So that's an important adage. It's important that we go back and not only look at history and things that people have said, things that are recorded, but also look at the intention of what good people have said in our past and what our founding fathers have said. You know, I use quotes from our founding fathers of our country all the time. I don't know a special sauce these people were drinking, but holy cow. I probably have 10 times more the education than they did. And yet their intelligence level was insane compared to people of today. And, you know, I think that religion and faith played a big difference in that. You know, I really do. You got to think that's another, speaking of divisive things that divide us as a people and a nation. It used to be, whether you agreed or not, the American people were united under Christianity, at least for the most part. Whether you were Christian or not, we had a Christian country, and people accepted you're gonna follow Christian values here, you know, which aren't too invasive. I mean, it's don't steal, don't lie, don't cheat, you know. It's not like it's like it's something that's very oppressive. You know what I'm saying? Although people can view it as oppressive, especially today, because Christianity is about teaching morality. And if you want to study the one thing that's destroyed every society and country in the history of the world, it's morality. There's always a moral decline before the country weakens, becomes corrupt, and fails and implodes on itself. And look at the fall of Rome. You know, there's several places in history you could give examples of, but we're sadly, the United States and the world is in that situation right now, right here. I would argue, you know, good society comes from holy families. And as we're going to see here, I always say you can't fight a war that you don't know what you're in. All right. And to that point, World War III has already started for those that don't know or haven't caught up. You know, that's unpleasant to think about, but it's true. It hasn't gone super hot yet. And I pray every day that time doesn't come or is pushed further back, but it has started. But that wasn't what I was referring to. What I was referring to is we're in a spiritual war. In this life, we are born into a spiritual war. And that has huge significances. And we're not taught to realize that or think about that or that to be something that's on our minds, but it's around us everywhere. There is good in this world and there's evil in this world. And it's time we have to make a decision to make a choice. Either be on one side or the other, get off of the fence. That's why Jesus says in the Bible, hey, if you're bad, be bad. If you're good, be good. But if you're lukewarm, I spit you out of my mouth. You see, make a choice, make a decision, get off the fence. And not making a choice is making a choice. So, because I know some people are just like, oh, I don't want to make a choice. Well, guess what? I mean, that makes a choice for you. So, but we're in a spiritual war, and it's a war that's gone on since this world was created and since man was born. And that's the war between good and evil. The war between good and evil. It plays out in every generation. And it's on escalating scales. It might back down for a while and comes back up, almost like a roller coaster ride. And right now, we're certainly at an escalation, certainly at a high escalation. All right. Getting on to the topic for tonight. Boom. So 9/11. All right. So when I was saying that there's a few things that have been very divisive, one of the first things that was super divisive for our country, am I saying that right? Divisive, divisive, um, is 9/11. Because of course this was a major tragedy in our country. All right. It was a major tragedy. I mean, it was a wake up call. It was a stirring of the pot. You know what I mean? It was something tragic and just insane and crazy and hard to even accept or absorb, whatever. Now we are told what the government media has told us that we have to believe about the situation, and you're wrong if you try to disagree with that. Well, that's hogwash, because governments are evil and they lie to people. And like I said, America was founded on not trusting government. So how in the world is it we believe everything that they say now? Stop drinking the Kool-Aid. Stop drinking the Kool-Aid. The government lies. All right. They are not trustworthy. And there used to be better people in government. Now there's not. Most of them are straight up globalists or communists and don't care about people. They don't care about what's best for the people or the country. They care about their agenda and their constituents, the people paying them, which a lot of times is big corporation. Now that's the definition of fascism. Anytime you get in a fight with some snowflake, they want to start calling you a fascist. I don't think these people have 2 days of education or brain cells to rub together. The definition of fascism is when you have big government in bed with big business and they are working together against you. All right. They're colluding together. That's called fascism. That's real. Just because you disagree with a snowflake does not make you a fascist, even though they call you what they're actually defending. How does that even make sense? 9/11. Okay, so we all know what took place on 9/11. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time going into that. I got too much ground to cover. Um, I'm working on this all day long. I'm already exhausted, and I didn't even have dinner. Skipping it just to work on this so I can get to bed at a reasonable time. But anyway, that said, 9/11. Okay, so we all know the basic stories and tenements of 9/11. So I'm not going to rehash all that. I'm going to get into areas that I don't think people know as much about. And one of them is this. This was a wake up call for me in my personal journey. I heard that there was a tenured professor that wrote a 100-page thesis about why the official story of 9/11 was not true, that the government was giving us. And then I heard, and I mean, I'm like, okay, yeah, I hear, tenured professors, they say stupid, crazy stuff all the time. And they don't care because they're tenured. So they're not going to lose their job. So, they're kind of free to say whatever, stupidity they want. Not to say that they always say stupidity, but you get where I'm going with this. Anyway, so that said, all of a sudden I found out that this professor was fired. 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 Why? He was fired because of his paper, because of his thesis. So wait a minute. I just said I hear these liberal professors all the time saying crazy stuff, but because they had tenure, they don't lose their jobs. But this one did, because he dared to challenge the narrative. So I was like, hey, this raises a red flag with me. Makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I'm like, something's not right here. So you know what I did? I got his thesis. It was 90 something pages. I read the whole thing and I was blown away. The man made clear points, and everything he said made common sense. And everything that he's refuting from the official stories don't even make sense or follow the laws of physics. Even though you have a whole ton of people who get paid that say, "Oh, I got the PhD and this is why it makes sense." Yeah, it's called lies. Lies. Loser, lies. Anyway, so I got the thesis and I read it, and that was an eye opener for me. And I said, "You know what? I was a professionally trained police officer, investigator, and what we were taught is when you do an investigation, then this is the number one takeaway I learned in police investigations. And that's this. When you investigate something, you don't listen to what witnesses say. You don't listen to what people say because people have motives and they lie. Shocker. So what you do is you study and follow the physical evidence because the physical evidence follows the laws of physics, follows the laws of nature. It has no agenda and it does not lie. It always tells the truth. And that was phenomenal in doing investigations. Now, once, like, I'll give you an example. Say I work a fatality, right? And there's witnesses. Well, I don't talk to the witnesses. I go to investigate the fatality. I look at the debris damage. I look at skid marks. I look at crush damage. I look at debris patterns. All right. Now, by doing that, I'm able to come up with a pretty reasonable idea of what took place here. I can replay it in my mind. I know the vehicle swerved here. I know it struck here. I know it spun over here. You know, it gives me enough data to know what took place. Now, I don't know everything at that point, but I have a pretty strong idea. And then, only then do I go and talk to witnesses. Okay. And if I talk to a witness and they tell me something that's similar to what I heard or what I've seen, what I know from the physical evidence, then I know they're telling the truth. And I don't expect them to be 100% at it because when you're traumatized, your brain works funny. You might think you see things you don't see. Witnesses are not great experts. You know, imagine that in a courtroom when you're putting someone in prison. Witnesses are not always great. And another thing we do is we separate witnesses right away because there's a psychological thing where one person spouts off something and then other people tend to agree. And I've had that happen. I did a hit and run investigation one time and we were putting out all over the news. All the witnesses said they saw a white truck with a red hood. So I searched for every white truck with a red hood in the state of Louisiana. And by the time we finished the investigation, and thank goodness we did solve the case, it was an entirely gold color pickup truck. So why did every witness at my scene go on record on reports stating it was a white truck with a red hood? Because one person said that and everyone else just agreed. You always separate your witnesses. Anyway, you get the point of what I'm saying. So getting back to 9/11, when I heard this tenured professor wrote this, it made a big impact on me. And I decided, you know what? I'm professionally trained. I'm going to do my own investigation in 9/11. So that's what I did. I started listening to witness testimony. By the way, um, there was a video I was trying to get on here, but I could not find a way to get it on here. So I apologize for that. I probably didn't have time to show it anyway. It was 20 minutes long, but it's a video that someone sent me today, and it was a string of different eyewitnesses, mostly first responders, that were in the towers that day, that all gave testimony. Um, all gave testimony to uh, that all gave testimony to hearing secondary explosions going off in the building. Okay, now that's huge. That means hold on a second, responding. No problem, Vault. Go ahead. So that's huge information because, we are told that planes struck the building, caused the fire, which caused the pancake collapse of the buildings. Well, that's preposterous. If you actually study physics, you study how buildings go down, you study demolition, you study all kinds of things. None of that makes sense. First of all, I had testimony from engineers who built the towers themselves, how they were designed and how they built them. And you know what they said? They said, I had the blueprints of the buildings, the actual blueprints, which, by the way, one thing I'll say is a lot of my evidence data that I collected for this investigation was destroyed. My computer was attacked and destroyed, and I lost everything. So now I can't go back and recreate that data or evidence because a lot of it has been scrubbed from the system. Even today, there are videos that I know I've seen hundreds of times, and I spent a very long time trying to find those videos, and I was unable to find any of those videos. Where after 9/11, I saw those videos hundreds of times over and over and over again. And now you I'm not going to say you can't find them, but I have been unable to find those videos again because they have been forcibly removed, scrubbed, and I'll get into more of that. But anyway, I don't want to get too hung up. It's so much information. Just trying to get this out in a kind of concise and reasonable manners is somewhat crazy because there's so many sides to all this. But I'll just stick with this point. So I was doing an investigation, and I got a lot of data. In fact, one of the things I was going to tell you is from the original engineers who built the building and their own testimony. They said they specifically designed the towers that they could be struck by a plane, and a large airliner plane, and not lose any structural integrity at all whatsoever. Boom. That was their testimony, and I had it. I don't have it anymore, but I can testify that I heard it in my investigation from the engineers who built the building. They designed the towers. They apparently, and they said this in the interview, that there was a plane that hit some high rise. So they thought it was a possibility that that could happen there. So they said they specifically designed it. So if a large airliner struck it, that building would be fine and go nowhere. So just some basic points too. Jet fuel, which, by the way, there was the 9/11 Commission report, which is about this thick. It's made up of NIST and FEMA's reports that form that, okay? And it's a bunch of buckets. In there, they say there was no combustible in the building, nothing no accelerant, like other than the fuel from the plane to cause further fire explosion, okay? Which makes sense. There's not a lot of accelerants other than maybe little cleaning materials, you could argue possibly, but even that wouldn't cause this kind of chaos. So they're saying the main accelerant, the main combustible was the jet fuel itself. Well, you got a problem right there for two reasons. Number one, do you remember the giant plumes that you saw going outside of the building of fire? I would argue, now I'm not a mathematician or an engineer, but I would argue the majority of that fuel burned in those plumes rather than inside the building. Number one. Number two, we know that jet fuel burns at a constant temperature, which is about 900 degrees. So about 900 to 1100 degrees. So right about 1,000 degrees. Well, I'm an amateur blacksmith. All right. I make my own knives and axes. And I flew to Sweden to a world famous company to learn how to do that. Grand Force Burks. They're awesome. And they make the best back axes in the world. But anyway, that said, you have to get metal to about 2,700 degrees, approaching 3,000 before it becomes weak enough for us to even hammer on it. So 1,000 degrees is not going to melt the beams in those buildings. Is not. Impossible. Scientifically impossible. Cannot do it. Cannot do it. So that just eliminated the entire book of the 9/11 Commission report. Eliminated. Gone. Doesn't hold up. Now, it can't pancake. It doesn't work that way. And even if it did, even if that was somehow possible, then the buildings would lose stability at an uneven level, and they would go like this. boom, and crash, landing into other buildings, which would cost more money. All right. That didn't happen. No, they fell in their own perfect footprint, not harming other buildings structurally. All right. Other than building 7, we'll swing back to that one. So, how is that even possible? How is that possible? It's 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 against the laws of physics. The only single way any building on planet Earth of that size and weight can come down perfectly in its own footprint is if it was professionally done by professional demolition. Period. End of story. There's no other possible way. No other possible way. So the engineers said planes wouldn't bring it down. There's not enough combustible material in that building to even weaken those beams to that point, and even not beyond that one floor for absolute sure. So how did it happen then? And even if that was possible, there's no way those buildings would have come down perfectly on their own footprint, not harming structurally other buildings other than 7, but we'll come back to that. So right there's a whole lot of problems and inconsistencies. And like I said, those follow the laws of nature. They follow physics. All right. Now, there are plenty structural engineers and physicists who will say contrary to what I'm saying. But these people are being bought off and paid to say what they're saying. There's also plenty of people who are not getting paid that have said the opposite with the same credentials behind and letters behind their names. And according to Elon Musk, credentials behind your names means about that much, especially today. Because I guarantee a PhD today is not the same as a PhD years ago. It's just those are two different worlds. Our education system is not the same. They're probably a really good communist socialist Marxist, though. Anyway, so those are some main points of 9/11. Here's some others. All right. There was 119 first responders, 119 first responders who all reported hearing secondary explosions going off in the building. Now that's huge because again, according to the official reports from the 9/11 Commission report, the only explosion is from the plane hitting the building and maybe some fire stuff popping off. But no, we have 118 first responders saying they're hearing multiple things exploding inside that building from their own testimony. Some of them were outside, some of them were in the building. Some said they heard it above them, some said they heard it below them. The courts silenced those 118. See, they were all impending kind of lawsuits for different reasons. Like one is for health. That brings up another point. And sadly, most of them were exposed to asbestos and particles in the air from trying to help save other people. They are absolute heroes. And it's part in respect to those heroes that I'm trying to explain what I'm doing right now, even if it's swimming upstream, or going against the grain. That doesn't bother me so much. So these people, so here's a little known fact that a lot of people are not aware of, and that is that there was the two buildings and the two 9/11 buildings, they had been condemned. Okay, they had been condemned. All right. Most people are not aware of that. Most people don't know that, but they had been condemned, those buildings. So, and no one wanted to buy them because the reason they were condemned is because, like many older buildings, they were full of asbestos. All right. Which causes lung cancer. So no one wanted to buy the buildings because it wouldn't have been cost effective, because you couldn't just buy the buildings and take over. You would have to literally demolish the buildings and rebuild them. Okay. It was to that point. Therefore, it wasn't cost effective for anyone to buy those condemned buildings. It just didn't make sense. It would have cost too much money. Unless someone was willing to professionally demolition those things on their own footprint so that they wouldn't. Yeah, the last thing you want to do if you're wanting an insurance payout is damage a bunch of other buildings where now you got to pay them. Now any money you get from the insurance isn't going to you, it's going to repair other buildings. You see what I'm saying? So you don't want that to happen. That's why they had to come down perfectly on their own footprints. How convenient is that, right? Imagine. So suddenly comes Larry Silverstein. Okay. He comes in at the last minute and says, "Hey, I know it makes no sense at all and it's not a good investment, but I got a good feeling. I'm going to buy them. Oh, and furthermore, a few months out, I'm going to change my insurance so that it sure is to cover terrorist attacks." Imagine that. Boy, he must be the luckiest man on planet Earth, right? Or one of the crookedest. Speaking of, he gave I listened to him give 4 different excuses for why building 7. See, a lot of people think that only 2 towers came down that day. That's not true. 3 towers came down that day. The Twin Towers and building 7. All right. And they Larry changed their story 4 times. Okay. Now, in law enforcement, we call that a lie. All right. We call that a lie. When you're interrogating a witness, if he starts changing his story, then you know he's lying to you. I mean, we're trained for that. We'll ask you to go through the story front to back, and then we'll ask you to do it again. Then we'll start from the back and go backwards. Then we'll pick it up in different parts and move forward and jump around. If your story changes, we don't believe you. We know you're lying. Well, it's the same thing with the higher ups with the big money. They lie. Shocker. I hate to be the one to break this. The people on planet Earth, people lie, especially government, especially politicians, Anyway, and especially rich people with big corporations that stand to make or lose a lot. All right. Shocker there, right? Anyway, so he ended up saying that, the building sustained structural damage due to the other Twin Towers and debris. Therefore, they said it was unstable, and so out of safety, they decided to go ahead and bring it down, just out of safety. Now, that sounds very reasonable on the surface, except it's complete Kafka. It's impossible to go wire a building professionally in a day like that and bring it down the way they said they did. Impossible. If you ask any demolition expert in the world what it would take to wire a building on one of these magnitudes to safely bring it down, they will tell you bare minimum 2 weeks. So you're telling me they did it in 1 day? And let's not forget the fact that they're in the middle of a crisis where people are shocked and people don't know what's going on and what to do. And that's the time you're telling me you're going to go run in and wire a building and bring it down for safety? That's BS. That's BS. That's a lie. That's a lie. Now, if you further investigate that building, you see what intelligence agencies had offices in that building, covering tracks maybe, and how much gold was taken out of the bottom of that building that was in safes from other countries. Stolen. We're talking millions for sure, but probably billions of gold just stolen. Where's that story? Why aren't people talking about that? It was in the news, but just like the $3 trillion missing dollars in the Pentagon, it just goes away and you don't hear about it again. How's that even possible? So I don't think it's a coincidence. It's something else in law enforcement investigations. So 1, you follow physical evidence, all right, over witnesses. Witnesses come last. Physical evidence comes first if you want to find out what happened. Follow the laws of physics. You don't have to be a physicist to do it. The second thing is you look for patterns. You look for patterns, pattern recognition. The third thing is there's no damn such thing as coincidence. If you find coincidences, you're finding the road to the bad guy. You're finding the guilty person. Also, connected to that is A, follow the money, and B, follow the motive. Who had motive? Who stood to gain from this? Who had reason to do this? And oftentimes you find the money and the motive, not always, but almost always, are the same and go together. All right? Not always. So, is it a coincidence that someone buys the buildings before the attack? No. Is it a coincidence that they changed their insurance policy before the attack? No. Is it a coincidence that they just decided to bring down professionally a building in the middle of a crisis in a single day? No. Is it a coincidence you have a leading intelligence agency that's working in the office across watching these other things across from the other two buildings? No, that's not a coincidence. That's called a staging area. And it's called covering your tracks. That's what it is. I mean, man, I tell you, the stuff that they try to shovel down us to believe. And the problem is most people just listen to whatever they're told on that little pretty little box, with the nice little letters underneath it, Fox News, Fair and Balanced, CNN, whatever it is. I mean, people just go along with whatever they're told. This was the biggest hog of hogwash. Hey, let me go deeper. Do you know, I did say it would take 2 weeks to wire these buildings, right? So if that's the case, do you know that they had bomb sniffing dogs? They had 12 bomb sniffing dogs. And these are like, these dogs are like $20,000 a piece. This isn't small time stuff. All right. They're probably the Belgian Mallards, I would imagine. I would guess that was like real big in that time. And they're great mom dogs. Well, anyway, they would send these dogs through the towers on a daily basis. Well, guess what? Those dogs were called off from doing their job 2 weeks prior to the attack. How is it that Al Qaeda was able to get our bomb sniffing dogs to quit doing their job for 2 weeks before the event? Here's another coinker. Do you know, everyone knows, the president at the time, Bush, and they know the governor of Florida at the time, or around that, I don't know if it was at the same time or just after, Jeff Bush, right? But they got a third brother. And guess what the third brother's job is? He ran security for the Twin Towers. Imagine that. Oh, and by the way, he quit his job. When do you think he quit his job? How about the day before the attack? Could that possibly be a coincidence in an investigation? Yeah, that's one I'm going to be writing down in my little, hey, this don't add up book. You know what I'm saying? Where's the investigation into that? I mean, for real. I mean, it's just insanity. All right. You can go on and on. I'll give you some more. Within 24 hours of the event, the governor, who was Giuliani at the time, ordered that all the steel beams, the support beams of those buildings, had to be collected from the wreckage within 24 hours. They shipped it on ships to China, and had it melted down. Now, in law enforcement, we call that the destruction of evidence. The main piece of evidence in question in what took place on those two towers on that day was the support beams on those towers and how they fell. So how is it that they were ordered to take the number one piece of evidence and have it destroyed? And we didn't even do it ourselves. We made some little under table backdoor deal to go do it with China and have China do it. You know what I'm saying? So that's a major smoking gun. Major smoking gun. I guarantee that's not a coincidence. That's something that needs investigation. All right, like major investigation. So you add all these things up, the more you research it, the more holes you find in the story. And it gets to the point that it just becomes ludicrous. I mean, just ludicrous. But like I said, it's hard to talk to people about this stuff. For years, I've tried to tell people that 9/11 was an inside job, and it was. I'll argue any person on planet Earth about that. Um, and it was. It absolutely was. The question is why, but the motive, and that's even deeper. But I've tried to argue this stuff and explain this to people for years. But of course, people are very patriotic. I am too. I love my country. I serve my country. I love my country. I love my people. I love the idealisms that our country was founded on. It's a shame that we've lost those ideals and we don't follow them today, including Christianity. But that said, a lot of people are just good people, and like I said in my last show, I found people have their kind of like security blankets, and they don't like you tugging on their security blankets. Poking holes at your. If you say that something's not true, you become the one that's the problem, not the ones that are lying to you. And that's how it's designed to do. That's the whole reason they came up with the whole term conspiracy theory, to make it a bad word and make it where you're self-censoring people. But conspiracy, there's nothing more American than being a conspiracy theory. I mean, you're not supposed to trust government and trust politicians and trust what they say. You ever heard that, actions are louder than words? Yeah, don't listen to their words because it's a lie. Look how they vote. That's an action. That tells you if they're a piece of crap or not. And most of them are. Shocker. So, but anyway, that's like when Trump hired that woman from Louisiana to be on the Supreme Court. I was like Barrett, or whatever. I was like, that's a mistake because look at her track record in voting. She's not a good voter. She hasn't stood for good things. So that being said, um, I don't think she should have been trusted. I could be proven wrong, but that was my opinion. And a lot of times that's a good way to perceive. That's like this Vance character. I'm not a fan of Vance. It's not to say he's not a good person. Many people are saying they are. And to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about him. But this is what I do know. He has said a whole lot of things against Trump, including that he's a never Trumper. Therefore, why would I trust him? Oh, well, he's changed sides. Okay, well, people can do that. But if he changes his side, am I going to trust him the same or as much? And after what happened with Pence, you would think that Trump would know better. You know, I don't, I, then, I would not be picking a VP that used to talk bad about me and say that they're always against me, even if they have come to my side. No, I'm going to pick the person I know I can trust. The person that, even when everything was wrong and everyone was against me, they were still on my side. That's the person I'm picking for my VP, with a big high five. So, like I said, if you look at the inconsistencies, they're extremely numerous, and it just gets, the more you look at it, the more insane it gets. Okay. Now, moving on, because I got to cover a lot of other ground here. This was an article today. Alex Jones okay. It's been a long day for me, folks. Sorry. This is an article Alex Jones had on his channel today. New footage was released, and it caused a big stink. And this footage shows the towers fell in their own footprint. And used to be lots of video footage of that. There's not now. So it's very hard to find footage. Like I said, a lot of footage I look for that I've seen hundreds of times is just not available anymore. Now, I'm going to get to one of the biggest smoking guns that I believe, as far as proving that 9/11 was an inside job. And that is seen in this picture. I was not able to find the videos, but I found this picture. People are texting me, just so you know, I cannot when I'm hosting myself and don't have a guest, I cannot follow the chat or my phone, so I can't read those. Not only does it stop me in the middle of the show, but it also completely removes my entire train of thought, and I have to completely start over. So I'm sorry um, to anybody trying to reach out to me. I love all you people, but I can't follow that and do the show at the same time. Um, but uh, uh, but anyway, so getting back to where I was. Ah, so check this out. I could not find the video footage, but notice in this picture right here, do you see the building standing up right there? And you see the smooth side of the building on the right side, and you got the plume, the big, ice cream plume just above it. You see that little line sticking out at a 90 degree just below the plume? Here's a closer up picture. Okay. Now you see that ice cream plume again on top. You see the red circle that's circling that little piece of smoke that's literally sticking out from the building at a 90 degree angle, right? So I'm gonna go back to this is the original picture. You see it? You see it right there, that little plume of smoke sticking out at 90 degrees. And I'm more so you can see it better. Okay. That's what I'm talking about. What is that? If you this is something I came across in my investigation, my original investigation, and that is if hold on a second, and we're having technical difficulties. Hey, tell me in the chat if you can still hear me or not. Can you hear me or not? Now we can see you. Can you hear me okay? It's cutting out bad. Hmm. Man, I tell you. Um, Let me know if it continues to do it, especially what I'm saying. Audio is functioning. If it let me know if the audio especially continues to stop. Or gets to the point you can't understand what I'm saying. I'll try and switch internet systems. Um, I shouldn't be having any issues right now. I should have plenty of bandwidth, so I don't understand. And I haven't even gotten into the crazy stuff yet. But anyway, just let me know if there's any audio issues, especially. I can see the video. I can't tell the audio. Anyway, so what I was explaining here, this little plume sticking out on the side, okay? If you speak to demolition experts, that little plume is called what's called a squib load. Like in law enforcement, we use squib loads as fake bullets when we do like simunitions and stuff like that and law enforcement training. Okay, when you when you when you're doing simulated munitions. Okay, well in the demolition industry, a squib load is a term where you see this. And what this is according to demolition experts that are professionals at bringing down buildings, they wire thermate and thermite charges to support beams and support structures. And what happens is when those go off, you see on the side of the building, you see a psh, 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 psh. You see these squib loads going off. Now, when 9/11 happened, I saw vantage points of film footage when they kept replaying images over. Some of them had those going off the entire way down as the structure started to fall. And you could clearly see it. And I was like, man, look at that. Like I didn't notice it the day it happened. I wasn't paying attention to that. But for a long time, footage was easy to get on 9/11, and I was able to go back when I started doing my research, and I found tons of this. I found the squib loads going off, and sometimes, like I said, there were. I used to have videos. Remember, I said my data was destroyed. I had videos where it showed one going off, another going off, another going off, another going off, and then it starts coming down. That's absolute, irrefutable physical evidence and proof that there were charges placed on the support structures of the beams of that building to bring that building down intentionally on its own footprint. On its own footprint. They were intentionally brought down. Now, can you say that terrorists might have confiscated planes and flown them into towers as weapons? Yes. Can you say that they were able to have the proficiency to go in those highly secured areas that had their own security teams, their own bomb sniffing dogs, et cetera, and able to bring those two towers down by wiring up all of the support beams in a 2 week time leading up to the accident? Hell no. Hell no. You know, like I said, um, that just doesn't add up. No matter how you slice your cheese, that just doesn't add up. Okay, in any which way. So, like I said, the more you research it, the more it gets crazy. The squib loads are absolute proof that it was an inside job. Okay, absolute proof. Not only that, I I remember also watching the footage, and there were some squib loads that when it went off, you would see that little plume of smoke come straight out at a 90-degree angle. And then you would see molten steel pouring down the side of the building. That's because the thermate charges or thermite did their job, liquefied that steel, and you see the actual steel from the support beams leaking out of the side of the building, at least on the outside structure. And by the way, on the schematics of the building and according to the engineers, there wasn't just an outside structure for the building. They had an inside one too in the center around the elevator shafts to give more structure and stability and strength to those buildings. It's been a while. It's been a while, so I don't want to say incorrectly, but if I remember correctly, then I believe that the official reports only said there was one support structure in the building. I believe. Um, Now, if they said there two, one thing I did find in my investigation is they lied about the strength of it. What the engineers said was the strength of the steel, and what was reported in the report didn't add up. Didn't add up. Um, it was not the same. And hey, we can't go back and test that theory now and prove it because it was sent to China and melted down. What the hell? Yeah, that shows cover up right there. I mean that completely shows cover up right there. I mean, you just destroyed the main evidence. However, there were some actual honest engineers that suspected foul play, and they were able to get samples of the support beams from the towers. And guess what they found? I have a DVD of this from back in the day. I have no clue where it is, but I had a DVD of this, I should say, where it was engineers that put a film together. They were able to get samples of the support beams from the towers. All right. Now, there were small samples because, like I said, the majority of that stuff was shipped off and destroyed, um, which is like one of the biggest smoking guns there ever was. But that said, they were able to acquire parts of steel from the support beams, multiple pieces. They were able to test them under microscopes. And what did they find? They found they all had residue of thermate or thermite on those beams. All of them. All of them. And they showed like these are the photos of the telescopes or the microscopes or whatever. Telescopes. Um, yeah, we're looking at it on the moon. Um, of the thermate and thermite. All right. Now, I keep saying thermate and thermite. You add a little change to the thermate to make it thermite, just liquefies the steel like a knife going through hot butter, or a hot knife going through butter, which is exactly what we saw in the squibloads. So that's absolute physical proof that charges were placed on those buildings. Those beams were wired to go. There's also another interesting photo I saw. There was some video footage where it showed that the top of the building. Now think of this for a second. If you have a building, right, and the plane runs into the top of the building here, not at the very tip top, but just here, okay? Well, then if it started to weaken the structure, as they say in the pancake theory, and then implode, you would still have the top roof somewhat almost intact, all right, or at least in much larger pieces. But that's not what we saw in video footage of the event. The roofs, the very top roofs, exploded outwards. In fact, there was video footage and photographs of of thousands of pound beams from that roof that were flying off away from being exploded out. Didn't fall down, was exploded out. Now, it's impossible the jet fuel could have caused that. What exploded that in an outward direction? So much so that I read one report that on nearby buildings, they actually found shards of human bones on the tops of roofs of other buildings nearby. That's not a fall, it's an explosion out, meaning bombs. All right, not just a weakening of a structure, as was reported. Well, I tell you, it sure is funny the people that our government chooses to do investigations, because it doesn't seem like they have any clue what they're doing or how to run an investigation. I'm just saying. And the fact that we're going to let the FBI investigate Trump's assassination attempt, all right, when they're clearly involved and they hate Trump. So how can you trust these people to conduct a proper investigation? Look at the Steele dossier. Was that handled correctly or proper, or was it completely one-sided just to target somebody? There you go. Look at Mar-a-Lago. Hey, we have shoot to kill orders. All right, it turns out, right? It's obvious that the leadership in these organizations are one-sided politically, and they're willing to lie, cheat, and steal. So why would you trust those people to do an investigation? They're complicit. Some claim that associate director was present there at the scene that day. They're involved. You can't say, oh, we're going to investigate ourselves of crime. You don't go and commit a crime and say, oh, don't worry, judge, I'm going to investigate myself. Oh, you know what? I'm not guilty. Shocker, But yet people buy this. Or like Congress said they wanted to do an investigation, and no, the head of Homeland steps in and says, oh, no. We're going to do our own. Oh, really? And they aren't involved either? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't trust any of these agencies or any of these people. And you know why? They're not trustworthy. If they've proven anything, it's they're not trustworthy. Hello? Why do people believe them? Don't believe them. They're not going to tell you the truth. Okay, I don't want to spend a giant load of time on spend an hour basically talking about 9/11 and bringing up a few key points that don't add up. But there's some other stuff I want to get to, because I jump from this point into like the Twilight Zone, all right, into to another dimension. I have my own theory about what took place this day. Now, before I jump there, let's look at motive for a minute here. Silverstein, who bought the buildings, he certainly has motive because he was getting a big payday for these buildings. Okay. So there's motive there. But what other motive? What happened after 9/11 or as a result of 9/11? Some very scary things happened in our country. First of all, I'll point out that it galvanized our country to start a war in the Middle East that lasted over 20 years that no American wanted. And they're like, hey, since we're over here, we're just gonna go over to this country and blow them up too and take over. Wait, yeah, well, you need a reason? It's weapons of mass destruction, weapons of mass destruction, which turned out to never exist. Never exist. That's called a lie. They lied about why we invaded a country. A lie. They started a 20-year war. Now, why would they do something like this? Well, when was the last time you remember America not being involved in a war conflict somewhere? I can't remember one. Since the day I was born or watching the news, it's one after another, just about. To quote Henry Kissinger, he once said, we make, and we meaning the globalists, we make more money in one day of war than we do in a year of peace. Is that not a motive to have endless wars? And that's what they've given us, endless wars, endless wars, endless wars. Americans didn't want to be in the Middle East. And if you remember the revolving door of the Republicans and Democrats, all right? We only have a one-party system, people. It's an illusion that we have two, all right? First of all, Democrats get away with whatever they want anytime they want. Republicans don't ever do anything. Just about. I mean, there are a few exceptions, and praise God for those people, and I'm not taking away from them. But as a party, they're the most wussified people that ever walked on this planet. They allowed their president to be ramshotted left, right, up and down, 6 ways from Sunday, constantly, and never lifted a finger to do anything or to challenge the other side in reverse. So we're gonna go after Trump. This is just pure hypocrisy. I don't care what political side you're on. This is completely hypocrisy. We're gonna go after Trump for anything and everything we can ever. We're even gonna change the laws so that we can go out and make up stuff to go after Trump. All right. Just so that we can say, oh, you're guilty. You're guilty. All right. But where's the Anthony Weiner investigation? Where's the Steele dossier investigation? Where's the destroying of servers by Hillary investigation? Where's the laptop investigation? Where's the my dad abused me in the shower in my diary investigation? I mean, holy cow. Investigations only go one way. When the other side is constantly involved. Look at Uranium One investigation. I mean, holy cow. It's insane, the stuff that these people get away with. And yet they're going to strain you at a gnat. Oh, you jaywalked one time. You got to go to prison. Then the stuff they get away, the government is becoming one-sided. One-sided. I had a person come up to me when I was at a restaurant one night, and she says to me, and it's a girl I really like, great waitress, my favorite waitress at this one restaurant. So I love trying to get her whenever I'm there or whenever she's there if I can. But she said, I just turned the age where I can vote, and I'm like, well, that's great. And she's like, well, she kind of, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but she kind of insinuated like it's a difficult decision because on one side I have a convicted felon, and on the other side I've got a person that doesn't seem like they're all there mentally. You know what I'm saying? Or could be showing like signs of dementia or whatever, something to that effect. And I tried to explain to her, look, just because some ultra liberal court broke all of your constitutional rights and all of your all the laws in order just to be completely biased and come down and say you're a felon doesn't mean you're actually a felon. I mean, all that stuff is going to get overturned. That's like Alex Jones. Oh, you're guilty. You peed on kids' graves. Now you owe us a billion, a cajillion dollars. Really? I mean, that's just a political attack is all it is. They broke all the rules of procedure in a courtroom to say he's guilty. In fact, he wasn't allowed to defend himself in any manner. The judge just said he's guilty from the start. That's all it was about. So they broke all of the rules just to say you're guilty. Well, those are going to be overturned. Here's the problem, though. The problem is right now they're using this as a political tool, a political weapon, because it's going to take at least 2 years to try to start sorting that out in the current system. And it's going to cost millions of dollars for you to defend yourself out of pocket. That's the system. Our judicial system is being weaponized against political opponents. If you don't believe me, ask Steve Bannon. Ask the great General Flynn. You know, this is a crazy, and they're not just going after, they're going after a lot of the political opponents. Look at what's the other one? I'm forgetting a blank all of a sudden. Roger Stone, another one. These are men sent to prison not because they did anything wrong, but because of a judicial proceeding where they're like, oh, we caught you in a trap, because they wouldn't turn. They're being punished because they wouldn't turn. See, a lot of people, when you're threatened with, a whole lot of stuff, imprisonment and stuff like that, they'll do anything to say anything, whether it's true or not, to get out of it. They'll make these little deals with you. Well, there's some people on this planet that have a thing called a backbone or a spine, and they stand by their friends even when times are tough. And unfortunately, those people are rare and few in this world today. But thank God that Steve Bannon, Roger Stone, and General Flynn are 3 of these men. And listen to what those men have to say. Okay, last point on this, and I'm moving on to another topic that's related. This is Major General Albert Stumblebaum. And for all of you who may not know him, this is an American hero if there ever was one. He served in intelligence, and he gave testimony and said, I saw a missile hitting the Pentagon, not a plane. All the sensors were turned off that day. I could go into a lot of detail on that. One apparently did not turn off and shows this object hit the Pentagon. It did not look like a plane, an airplane. At each floor, successive puffs of smoke are seen, squibs. Now he's talking about the 9/11 Twin Towers. Imagine that. He's bringing up the same thing I did as a smoking gun. At each floor, successively, there were puffs of smoke, 90-degree angles, are seen, squibs all the way down. Those puffs of smoke are due to controlled demolition. The collapse of the Twin Towers were caused by controlled demolition. Yep. Remember I said don't believe in coincidences? Check out this coincidence. Boom. Now, a lot of you, if not all of you, have probably seen this before. But tell me that this is just a coincidence, because I got a bridge in Indochina that I want to sell you. Notice how even like one is at a higher level than the other. They're not even at the same level, kind of thing. This is not a coincidence. This is a conspiracy. And by the way, for those that believe that conspiracy might not be true, I've got to say, as I said before, but it's worth reiterating, conspiracy exists because evil exists. See, evil does not come to you and say, hi, I'm evil, I'm here to kill you. No, it's not how it works. Evil always pretends to be your friend, like a politician. N- Evil does not work in the open, and I'm going to stress this point later. Evil always hides behind closed doors. It always conspires in the shadows. All right. Um, remember how they always say the devil's greatest thing is getting people to believe he doesn't exist, and there's a lot of wisdom in that. Well, it's the same with his followers. See, to say that the devil doesn't exist is to say that evil doesn't exist, and the devil does exist, and evil does exist, and so does conspiracy. Conspiracy is the very nature of how evil operates and spreads like a cancer, like a mold in the dark, all right, in the shadows, not in the open where the sunlight would kill it, would squash it. See, if our government told you the truth, they wouldn't be allowed to get away with all the stuff they're getting away with. Duh. Here's one of the biggest conspiracies on planet Earth. The Bible says that mankind conspired to kill God. And they did. They did. They conspired. They plotted until they finally were able to get their political agenda done through conspiracy. This proves conspiracies are real. That doesn't mean every conspiracy is real. But to quote Elon Musk, it's getting hard not to believe in conspiracies when every one of them's turning out to be true. Another great quote is, it's not a conspiracy once we have evidence to prove it's true. Another thing about 9/11 is this. Do you know how one of the things that they're claiming is an inside job with the Trump assassination is the put options from Vanguard, BlackRock? Or they're saying that they made all these put options right before in the hopes that his death would cause the stocks to crash and they would make billions, right? But no, that was just a clerical error. Even though we've done that multiple times before in the past, that's just a clerical error. And please give us our money back after we've made the trade. Really? Yeah, because that works for like anyone else on the planet except you, right? Well, yeah, there's nothing to look at here, people. Nothing to look at there, right? That's not a coincidence or a cover up or a scam. Well, it turns out that the same thing happened on 9/11 or just before 9/11. All right. There were put options that prove that in the stocks market and in trading that people had prior knowledge that the event was going to take place before it took place. So again, it's not a coincidence that we see that today with Trump, the assassination attempt, and we also had the same thing happen on 9/11, all right, or just before it. So not a coincidence at all. All right. Some other key points I'll bring out to that. Cat Williams. There were celebrities that said they got a phone call and they were specifically warned not to go to that part of the country on that day, in that time frame. And it was more than one. I've heard multiple people, at least three people, that have said that they got a call warning them, don't go there. So again, prior knowledge before it took place. That was not Al Qaeda calling them to warn our nice celebrities that they enjoy watching on entertainment. Somebody had prior knowledge. Now, Cat Williams, who I named, he's one I remember. He came out saying that he got a call that warned him, don't go, because he was planning. He had a trip for work, business, whatever. He was planning to go there. People knew it. He got a call warning him not to go, and he wasn't the only one. But he talks about it. He's one of the only ones talking about it. You know that man is an amazing patriot and stands for the truth. And there's few of those people in the world today. Um, there was something else on the order of that I was going to mention about high crazy. Stock options. Oh, Aaron Russo. For many of y'all that may not remember, go look up on YouTube the old film with Aaron Russo. Was it Inconvenient Truth? Was that it? I don't know. Just look up Aaron Russo and 9/11. Aaron Russo died of cancer. Sadly, he's from New York. Good man. He made a video and that he released, he went public with 6 months before 9/11, where he said he had a relationship with Nick Rockefeller of the Rockefeller dynasty. And he explained how Nick Rockefeller told him about 9/11 was going to happen before it ever took place. Before it ever took place. Now, he didn't say in explicit detail all the events that were going to happen and exactly how it was going to happen, but he told him, and I forget the exact wordage, but he basically told him something major is going to go down that we are planning, and we're going to blame it on the bad guys as an excuse so we can do this and do this and do this. All right. And that brings me to another point. Not only as a result of 9/11, not only did we go to a 20-year war that we didn't want. Remember, I said the revolving doors with the Republicans and Democrats were the one. See, here's where you catch that door. It's one system, not two. Anyway, the Republicans said, "Hey, vote us in office, and we'll end the war and bring our troops home." And everyone's like, "Okay, vote them in." Then the Democrats said, "See, the Republicans didn't do it. Vote us in, and we'll end the war and bring your children home." And they're like, "Okay." And then the Democrats got in. Then the next election, the same thing. It just went back and forth, and every one of them was lying through their mouth, trying to keep it clean. But anyway, so that's something else. But yeah, the Aaron Russo testimony, gigantic. Motive. So we had the 20-year revolving door war, 20 plus year. And by the way, it was Trump that ended that war and brought our troops home. Oh, but what happened? What happened? Right after that, we just started not Ukraine war. We got a whole new war to fight, pay for. It never ends. You're dealing with the party of war. I mean, come on. That's what evil does. It always wants to be at war. And it's also sacrificing people to their God, which is something I'm going to get into. But here's another motive for 9/11. Our laws changed, our government changed as a result of 9/11. I listened one day to a news report, and it was one of the scariest things I ever heard in my life. The federal government was saying, we're going to reinterpret the law, existing law, to give us more authority and power that Congress did not give us. And a reporter was like, back when we had actual journalists that would like call you out on real issues and do like investigations, we don't have that anymore. Now you just have actors reading scripts. But at least in mainstream, so go listen to independent news. But that said, the reporter's like, wait a minute, did you just say you're going to reinterpret the law to give you more power and authority? Yes, that's exactly what I said. We're not going to pass new laws. We're not going to ask Congress to give us more power. We're just going to steal more power by reinterpreting the same law in a different way and just say it gives us more authority and power. Our government changed overnight after that one address. Then what came out after that? The Patriot Act, the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act. All right. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Patriot Act, but I've read large parts of it. It's very big, so I'd be lying if I said I read the whole thing. But if you read the Patriot Act, this is what it does. It says, this law takes away your constitutional rights. 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 You get the point? That's the Patriot Act. And the National Defense Authorization Act is that on steroids. Okay. So it's that on steroids. In fact, the National Defense Authorization Act has all kinds of like pork rolled into that one that the general public's not aware of, like the Veterans Disarmament Bill, where if you're a veteran and you ever saw a shrink or prescribed a piece of medication that can be considered in the psychotropic category, you can lose your Second Amendment rights. And it's a way to disarm veterans when they get back home from wars so that they can't start trouble. You see? Sly. Um, Another thing in the National Defense Authorization Act is that they can assassinate citizens, American citizens. And it's so subjective. It could be any reason for at any time for anything. They can just make shit up. Also, with the Patriot Act and the National Defense Authorization Act, they can also take away your constitutional rights, like just like that. So I ask you, do we have a functioning constitution that protects us anymore as Americans in our country? Do we? Because I claim if they have the power to remove that at will at any time for any reason, that's so subjectively the way the law is written, that's basically they can make up any reason. If they have that ability to remove your rights at will, do you actually have constitutional rights anymore? Because I argue no. It's just an illusion. It's an illusion. That means they can arrest you and put you in prison with no trial, no jury, no lawyer, no contact with your family. And believe me, before Almighty God, this has been used already many times, including to our own federal agents who tried to warn us that things were going bad in our government and that we were being lied to. So they made them go away. That happens. So our country is in a real dark place. You really let that sink in and add that up. Think about that. Mull over that for a while. And then look at the fact that our government's using the judicial system to go after political opponents on multiple levels to multiple people and trying to assassinate would-be presidents. Our country is in the darkest state right now than it has ever been in. And it's on the precipice, the edge of a knife from getting what they really want, which is total martial law, total lockdowns, so they can bring in their new system. Right. Speaking of, I want to show some of the, you got to understand the mindset of these people. One thing about good people is you're not crazy, at least most of us, some of us. What? Good people have a hard time understanding how bad people actually think and operate. And that's because you're a good person. I mean, you have to be somewhat insane to understand how the insane brain works. It doesn't work like yours. Yes, there are people who want to kill you, your family, your children, and your country and the world. There's people that want to kill off all of humanity that are like world leaders. Elon Musk said one time that in these billionaire clubs, these people are contacting entities in other dimensions. And they're saying that they'll make us gods if they're willing to have what it takes to kill off all the rest of us on the planet. Well, that doesn't sound demonic, now does it? You know? Remember, Satan hates us because we have we have the opportunity what he lost. So he hates us. And his greatest achievement is to get us to lose what he lost. Don't let him do it. So understand the mindset of these people. Ron Emanuel, never let a crisis go to waste. All right. Never let a crisis go to waste. Now that says a lot, but imagine how much more it says when you realize they're the ones that actually create the crisis to begin with. See, that's called a Freudian, not Freudian. I was thinking Freudian slip. That's called a Hegelian dialectic. Hegelian dialectic. A Hegelian dialectic is problem, reaction, solution. So they're like, okay, we want to get the herd of cows to go into this stall. So we're going to cause this commotion over here that'll scare the cows and will stampede them into the stall that we want them to go to. Problem, reaction, solution. So they want you to be stuck in the solution, prison, slavery that they have planned for us. So they're going to actually cause the panic, the fear, the destruction of our country, so that they can force us into their solution. All right. And to give you an example of that, see if I can find it over here. I couldn't get all my quotes on here. It said I was being a bad person and trying to add too many. Um, I don't know if I added anyway. I have got Henry Kissinger um stating, he said that you control oil, and you control, like, you control the economy. He says, but you control food, and you control the people, the population. So people are always like, why is Bill Gates buying up all these farmlands in the United States? Well, that's why, so that they can control them. And it's not for a good reason. It's not for a good purpose. All right. So, okay, now that's pretty much covering the most of what I wanted to talk about or cover on the 9/11 towers. And I hope I've added some things that you might not have heard before. And listen, don't take my credibility for this. Go research the stuff for yourself. The problem is, you know what I find? Most people, they won't do it. They won't research. The plenty of people who say, who won't even lift a finger to research anything. Or they do one Google search and say, now, see, you're lying because I found a fact checker right here who's played by the left to sit here and say you're full of shit. Okay, yeah, that's research. I've gotten in arguments with state troopers, and they're like, they do one Google search and like, "No, John, you're wrong on that, man. It says right here." I'm like, dude, that's not research. I'm sorry to tell you. Anyway, now I will say, like I mentioned before, if you do try to research this topic, a lot of information that I had available that I still know in my head is not available anymore to the general public. They have removed a lot of the videos, and any evidence they could remove, they've tried to remove it. And there's a lot of evidence. There's a lot of videos now that you cannot go back and find. So that's a problem. And as far as doing research, even that's also a problem. Because you might have the best intentions and might not be able to find the stuff I was witnessed or exposed to. And quickly, I'll talk about one other thing. So when I went down this rabbit hole and I started to blow my mind on this stuff going on, the Bush Kerry election was coming up, and both of them were Skull and Bones members from the Yale Secret Society. All right. And that's the next topic I'm going to go into, which is secret societies. All right. Secret societies are evil. They're evil. There's no place for secret societies in a free democratic republic country where everything should be brought to the light and to the table. See, if you have a group you're in and you swear oaths that you're going to defend each other over the laws of our country, well, that's a problem. And we can't trust you as a politician or leader if you're going to do that. Well, as I was going down this rabbit hole of 9/11 and with all this research and all the stuff I found that was blowing my mind, we had the Bush Kerry election coming up, and both of them, how convenient, or what a coinky dink it is. Remember, you don't believe in coincidence as a police investigator. How coincidental is it that both of these men happen to be from the Skull and Bones Secret Society at Yale? They're fraternity brothers. And it's not just a fraternity. This is a fraternity that started the main intelligence agency in the United States, and still to this day feeds from that fraternity like no other. And that's something too. Why would a fraternity / secret occult society create our intelligence agencies? Because it seems that that's a big problem. How can you trust these people when they're taking our rules, supersede the rules of the outside world? Go watch that movie, The Skulls. I love Paul Walker, and it pisses me off they murdered him, and he was murdered. Should do a show on that one time. I love Paul Walker. Not a perfect man. I've never met a perfect man. But he was a good man. Doesn't mean he did everything right, but he was a good man. He was a good-hearted man, and he was murdered. Paul Walker was murdered, I believe. And I got the freedom to say that, but there are things to back that up. It's not just throwing out some crazy theory. There are things to back that up. Now, enough to prove it. I don't have that, but go watch the movie The Skulls about the Skull and Bones at Yale. All right. Now it's kind of comical and it's lighthearted, which I love lighthearted movies, really. The world's too deep with all this crap, man. I need a break. I like lighthearted stuff. But anyway, go watch that. Another great movie. Watch The Good Shepherd with Matt Damon. All right. Matt Damon and who else is in The Good Shepherd? Matt Damon and who else? Um drawing a blank all of a sudden. Um, but anyway, Matt Damon in The Good Shepherd. All right. That's a great movie. That's a really, really good movie. It's about the history of how the main US intelligence agency was created at Yale and how it was knee deep in uh, 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 occult rituals and ceremony. It's not just for fun because they're fraternity brothers having fun. I mean, there is that too. But no, they take it to a serious level of occult ritual. A serious level of occult ritual. All right. Why is it that you have these occult rituals and then these people are running for president or federal judges, things like that. Like it's the amount of power that they yield, it's insane. Okay. But anyway, the Good Shepherd, it really shows how these agencies were created. So go take a look at those if you get a chance. One's real serious, one's kind of comical almost, but still does a good job of getting the idea across. And not only that, but how young impressionable people get sucked in to power through temptation, stuff like that. I tell you one thing about Jesus, people always tell me who are good people. They're always like, John, I don't get it. I try and try and try, but I'm just poor. How is it all these people make all this money? Here's a secret. Jesus prefers his people to be poor rather than having more money. All right. Because people with less money tend to be better people than people with more money. Money tends to corrupt, it corrupts the soul. And so Jesus really prefers people to be poor. In fact, of his apostles and disciples early on in the Bible, he tells them that they have to be poor. They have to give up everything. That's why the Bible says, go sell everything you own and come follow me. It's not a joke. Um, it's not just a saying, a good saying or metaphor. No, it means go sell. And remember the rich man that spoke to Jesus, and he's like, I'm to sell everything I own, everything that my father worked so hard for. And Jesus said, everything. He says, you can't follow me and mammon. It's got to be one or the other. You know, you've got to give up everything to follow me. Everything. The boy said, I follow. Jesus says, what do I have to do to inherit the kingdom of God? Jesus says, you've heard the laws of Moses. Follow the 10 commandments. And he says, I've done this. I followed these laws since my youth, since I was a little kid. And Jesus stopped and he turned and he looked at him. And he said, there's one thing left you have to do. Go and sell everything you own. Pick up your cross and come and follow me. Invitation. Invitation to join Jesus right there. And the man couldn't do it. He said, sell everything that my dad's worked so hard for his life. Everything. And he couldn't do it. He let that opportunity go. And for what? For junk. Junk. That's all possessions are. When I was a younger kid and I was studying to be a priest and a monk, I gave up every single thing I owned. And you know what? I never felt more free. The things you own end up owning you. You know? There's something to that. It's not to say that there aren't rich people that are good. There are a few. In fact, Jesus talked of Lazarus in small teacup tradition and theology. Lazarus was a very rich man. You know, the one he raised from the dead, he was a very rich man. But Jesus said one time, and this is small teacup tradition. That means, it's you're not going to find it in the Bible. This is tradition, oral tradition. But he said that Lazarus was one of the most rarest people on the planet. He was a wealthy, wealthy person who cared more about God and people than he ever cared about any money. He didn't care about money, even though he was wealthy. And Jesus said that was one of the most rarest things on planet Earth. So I thought that was neat. It's an inspiring little story. Um, but anyway, so getting to occult societies, I've got a different take on 9/11 that I want to share. And it's part of the reason I'm doing the show. And it's why I got Aleister Crowley up on my thumbnail here. Put myself back on stage. Okay. Um, so this is the picture we were looking at. I should have just put up this picture. It's been a long day, people. Sorry. Anyway, the book right there. Okay. This is his book called The Book of the Law, all right, that he wrote or that he wrote under, like demonic influence that he was channeling entities or whatever. Notice here on this cover, and I've seen other books of it with this exact cover on it, not the one that has the star that you see right here, right? Um, but here, notice again, you have what? The pillars. You see the pillar on the left? You see the pillar on the right? That's important, okay? And also, you know, it's important that it looks somewhat like these two pillars. See the one on the left and the one on the right? That's important, all right? Now, going back to the book of the law. The book of the law, Aleister Crowley, the book of the law. This was just opening the inside page. Now, here's a kicker. The book of the law. This is why I'm making a point of this. In book 3, in Article 71, it says this: Hail ye twin warriors about the pillars of the world, for your time is nigh at hand. Hail ye twin warriors about the pillars of the world, for your time is nigh at hand. Okay? And that's what this statement is saying right here, just by itself. This my spidey sense, if you will, from my religious nature and studying theology, that keys off my spider sense. My spider sense, and has for years. The first time I ever came across and read this, and I was doing a biography of studying the life of Aleister Crowley. Um, as soon as I saw that, the first thing I thought of was the Twin Towers. That is a very cryptic comment. Now you got to understand, this is their version of a prophecy, and they believe this in some esoteric occult circles. They believe in this prophecy, and in this prophecy, they're saying there's two twin warriors, like pillars of the world, and that your time is nigh at hand. It's a warning. It's a warning and a prophecy that two warriors and pillars are going to be removed. All right. Now, I want to go into some symbolism. Um, here's a dollar bill. A dollar bill, one thing I try to tell people, think of like in Catholicism, we have like rosaries. This is a short version of a rosary. It's got a Benedictine medal on one side, crucifix, 10 decades, beads of 10 decades, of one decade of 10. Um, Usually a rosary is 5 decades. This is like a short pocket version that's just smaller. You just pray this 5 times instead of having a 5 decades. Anyway, This metal that has symbols on both sides. This is a Saint Benedict metal, and it's supposed to be powerful in exorcisms and against demons. Okay, I always carry them around me, including around my neck. Got it in the foundation of my house, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, others, we call this an article, or we ask priests to bless these and give them a protection, and we believe that they help protect us from evil and evil spirits and stuff. When you have these around, it helps to repel them. That's something that's believed in Catholicism, and whether you believe in that or not, I tell you this: in exorcisms, it works. It just straight up works. All right, so. Whether whether you agree or not, you don't have to. But in exorcisms, yeah, this stuff works. Anyway, another person might call this a talisman. All right, a talisman. Um, Now, that's not what a Christian or Catholic would call it, but that's what someone who might not know, or someone who might even be, say, someone that was into occult organizations, they might carry similar, like kind of medallions like this that have writing and inscriptions on both sides, and they believe that that writing and inscriptions represents power of some sort that helps to give them good luck, protection, whatever. And they might call that a talisman. All right. So the reason I bring that up is look again here at the dollar. What do you see here? You see that this is a talisman. On one side, you have one side in a circle on the talisman. All right. And then on the other side, you have the other side of the circle that completes the talisman. So I claim that even though Christians have no clue, and this is how clever the devil and evil is. Christians have no clue that every time they're carrying one of these in their pocket, it's actually like a demonic talisman, I would argue. Okay? Now, Christians will be fast to point out, but John, right here it says, "In God we trust," so we're comfortable. Well, I'm trying to think how I can say this politely. That's stupid. That's stupid. Yes, in God they trust. Oh, I agree. That's what it says. But what makes you think what makes you think for any reason on planet Earth that they're talking about God or Jesus? Because they are not. You show me one symbol on this thing that's like just full of symbolism. You show me one thing that represents Jesus Christ or God or the Bible. Not. It's not there. So when it says, "In God we trust," they sure the hell are not talking about God or Christianity. So that begs the question, what God is it that they trust in? Because I will argue the God they trust in is told to you right here in the description of the rest of the dollar bill on the talisman. All right. There's a lot of symbolism here. Well, first of all, let's take a look at this, the first part of it. Oh, let me back up. In occult societies, all right, um, a lot of times the devil mimics, and look too, when I say occult societies, I'm lumping all generalities into a bunch of different groups. So I'm not, don't get too hemmed up, or if you believe something different, that's fine. I'm not trying to put down your belief system. I am trying to talk about contradictions of Christianity. And I will tie in because I absolutely believes part of this is not only Aleister Crowley and his satanic OTO, but also Freemasonry, which that brings up a lot of division because there's a lot of good Freemasons out there. I would argue that there's two sides to Freemasonry. One's just kind of like a men's club that does charity work, like Shriners Hospital, and they're good people that try to do good for people. I've known people like this, and they're not bad people. I've gotten in several discussions with Masons, even on channels like TikTok and stuff. Gotten in arguments with them, and you know what? They were very good and respectful people. There was nothing I could say, but I do claim there's two sides to that organization. I claim that there's one side that's the lower side, and there's a higher side that manipulates the lower, and the lower doesn't realize what it is they're actually a part of or what they belong to. And I will put out there as well, I have family that were Freemasons, that were Shriners. Hey, Bell comes from Scotland. I'm Scottish. All right. That's where Freemasonry was invented, was Scotland. Um, and I could go into that a little bit. I met a historian. I don't know. Did I say this on this channel before? I don't know, but I met an historian one time who was from Scotland, and he was a Scottish historian. And he said that he found records. You remember? I think I did mention this before on the channel, but do you remember the movie Braveheart? Come on, everyone loves Braveheart, right? One of the greatest movies ever. Um, Back when Mel Gibson was cool. I still think Mel Gibson is cool. Did he make mistakes? Yes. But uh, the man is a brilliant film director and filmmaker. I mean, and I don't think anyone, and actor. I don't think anyone could argue those things. Did he struggle with some things in his personal life? Yes. And if you're going to make a movie like The Passion, you better damn well believe the devil's coming to whoop your butt. So, you get a little bit of what you ask for, kind of. Um, but all in all, I think the man is a good man, and I think he's tried to make repentance for a lot of stuff that he has done wrong, and no one's perfect. No one's perfect. Um, but anyway, getting back, so the movie Braveheart. Remember the last scene of the movie where Robert the Bruce fought the British, and even though they were outnumbered, they won the battle, and that's historical. Well, the historian I met that from Scotland said he was digging through records in the Scottish Parliament, and he found depictions of that battle, that very battle, and eyewitness accounts. And he said that there were mercenary soldiers that joined Robert the Bruce and the Scots to defeat the British in that battle. And when they described the bannerments of those soldiers, it was the former Knights Templar. They were the shields they wore, the breastplates, the banners they flew. It was all Knights Templar. And that had not been seen for a very long time. Because you remember what happened is um, I claim that the Freemasons came from the Knights Templar. Now, some will agree, some will disagree, but that doesn't matter. I met a guy one time that wrote a book called Behind the Lodge Doors, and we spent the day. It's 14 hours of him describing his book to me and the history of it. And he was the one that first turned me on to this about the Knights Templar becoming the building the modern Freemasons. And what happened is the Knights Templar were like some of the baddest dudes on the planet back in the day. I mean, they were awesome. They were a religious order of monks, but they were militant. They were professional soldiers as well. One of the rare times in the Catholic Church where you actually had monks that were fighting soldiers. And they were like special forces guys. I mean, these guys were cut above everybody else, kind of thing. I mean, I'm talking in generalities. But another thing that was unique to the Knights Templar, if you came from a rich family and you were the firstborn son, you were the heir. So you had the name and you had the money and all that, the prestige. But if you were the second born son, you didn't get jack. So a lot of times what these people would do to keep up prestige of their name was join things like the Knights Templar. All right. So that kind of elevated that order a little bit too. They became a force to guide. They fought during the Crusades, okay, against the Persian expansion of the Crusades, all right, which is something that we kind of lost to history. I don't ever hear anyone talking about that before, but anyway, they fought then, and one of the things they did during the Crusades, they got special permission from the Pope at the time, where they would guard travelers that would go make pilgrimages into the holy city, because they would often encounter invading forces and troops along the way. And the Knights Templar had developed quite a reputation that only a handful of them could fight off a much larger element, that they were really highly skilled and trained, and they had this reputation for this, you know. So they started protecting people going into these cities. Well, consequently, to protecting these people, these travelers, they didn't have banks like they do today. So it was the Knights Templar that kind of invertedly invented banking in the world. They said, hey, I'll tell you what, why don't we write you a little note and we'll hold your gold coin for you. And that way, if you get robbed, we still have your money safe. You see what I'm saying? Or at least the majority of it. You know, you might take some for the road, you know? That invented banking in the world. It came from the Knights Templar. Now, some might disagree, but many do agree. And historians and stuff that I've studied on this topic. Well, with money also comes a lot of temptation. And over time, there were a lot of accusations that were made against the Knights Templar as to whether they were really good and holy or just doing their own agenda. And some of it even just nefariously evil, like secret rituals and stuff like that. Now, I don't know that that's that case. Uh, I do know this. There was a king, I believe, of France at the time. It's been a long time, but I believe it was a king of France who owed them a lot of money, owed them a lot of money. And he came up with an idea that instead of having to pay back this large debt he had to pay to the Knights Templar because he had to feed his armies, he turned the Pope against them with by claiming that they were doing some evil things, and so the Pope did turn against him. Now that there were accusations made, and he did have motive for that, and money and owning a big debt's a big motive. All right, I get that. That doesn't mean that the accusations weren't true or there didn't have any validity to them. I don't honestly know. But I do know this. They were using the excuse to the Pope of protecting pilgrims into the pilgrimage to the Holy Land, and they were secretly excavating underneath King Solomon's temple in the hopes of discovering money, treasure, knowledge, etc. Okay, and there's all kinds of rumor about that. Because they were bankers, they grew extremely powerful and extremely rich. And I can tell you this, that often does not bode to serving God or beneficial to your soul. That is a way for a lot of corruption to get in. So that's why I'm saying they might not have been all squeaky clean or anything either. Now, to the point of who was right and who was wrong or both, I don't know. But there are some things to suggest there was some crazy going on. Anyway, the Pope decided that, hey, this is a powerful group, so we're going to attack them all at once. So they went to all their houses and attacked them all at the same time. That happened to be, well, there's a rumor. I've heard people try to refute that recently, but I always heard and read before. That happened on Friday the 13th. And that's why to this day, Friday the 13th is a very bad, scary number, you know? Um, but, uh, but now the validity, I don't know, but I did read that from multiple sources back in the day. Um, the church did confiscate most of their community and many of their members, and got the head of their community, and they tortured him, which I think even though I'm pro church, I think that was very wrong and bad to do. The Inquisition and all that was just very evil. But anyway, I don't believe in torturing anyone, even my enemies. Um, Even if you think it'll save lives, like in philosophy, that doesn't fly. You can't do evil to do good. It's modern philosophy of consequentialism and utilitarianism that states that it's okay to break a few eggs in order to make an omelet. In other words, the ends justify the means, meaning I can do evil if my intention is for a greater good. No, you cannot. That's just doing evil. It's a justification to do evil. Uh, Someone good should always strive to do good, never evil. You know. Anyway, so the remaining survivors of the order of the Knights Templar went underground and went into hiding. Okay, now they remained hiding and underground until according to this historian, that they showed up on the battlefield with Robert to Bruce to fight against the English. And after that, it's claimed that they started the rite of the Scottish rite of Freemasonry started at that time. Okay, and then later you had the York Rite, which was essentially York Rite means New World, New York, the United States. Okay, and you can see this. I'm going to show you if you look at the many of the foundations that our country is symbolism our country was built on. It was all designed by Freemasons. Many of the founding fathers were Freemasons. But I would also argue, oh, there's a quote I forgot to get. I will also argue it's not the same today as it even was back then, when you still had better people that were involved, people that were good-hearted, God-loving people. And I'll give you an example. This is a quote I should have found that I did not, but one is from George Washington. George Washington made a statement that he was a Freemason, but he said that the Freemasons had been corrupted and taken over and had become evil. All right. George Washington, the first president of the United States, said that. Okay. So, but they were so powerful. Most of our founding fathers were Freemasons, including George Washington. So, and to this day, they're still very powerful. Um, and I claim that it's secret societies and at higher levels, it's bad and is ushering in the Antichrist. And that's what I'm getting to. So I explained in occult magic, all right, you got to understand occult magic. A lot of times the devil always, we call him the great ape of God. He mimics and mocks God. Okay. God has created all things. So they mimic things that God has done. All right. And do it kind of like in reverse or their own weird way. But in a lot of occult magic, and I'm not claiming all. So if someone's out there is involved in occult magic and you're like, oh, it's not what we believe. You know, I'm talking in generalities here, and what many do believe doesn't necessarily mean it applies to everyone or everything. I'm just trying to get this point across. So you have the male energy on the left side with the all-seeing eye and the pyramid, and you have the female energy on the right side with the what we think is the eagle, but it's not. It's actually a phoenix. All right, and actually is an Egyptian symbol, I would argue. But so you've got the male and the female energy. Now, what happens is those two energies come together to do what? What happens? God created man and God created woman. Sorry, snowflakes. It's the only two. Got to say it while it's still legal to, and you don't go to prison for saying that. But anyway, God created man and God created woman. So, and the Bible talks about how the two become the one. All right, the two become the one. Um, there was a time in the Bible where Jesus was talking to like a prostitute about being with multiple men, and he said something to the fact like, I don't remember the exact verse or anything, but he said something to the fact that don't you know that when you lay with another person, the two become one? Like it doesn't just mean on a physical level where you create a child, which that does happen, but that's what it's designed to do. But it also means that the two become one spiritually. The souls of the man and wife become united into to their souls become united on a real spiritual level, a very real spiritual level. So and that can't be undone, cannot be undone. Your soul is fragmented to a degree from that point. You always will have a soul tie to that person. So the problem is the devil in modern society doesn't want us to have any type of chastity. He wants us not to have one person that we unite ourselves to, but the world today tries to convince us that we have to have multiple people. The problem is when we have sexual relations with those people, it splits our soul. Our souls split. And when you have somebody that's done this multiple times, imagine how fragmented and wounded that soul then becomes. See, we're not taught to think about things in that way, but it's true. This is something that Jesus tried to teach us, you know? Now, that doesn't mean, you know, and look how big divorce is today. I mean, my goodness, most people I know are divorced. Very few people do I know are not divorced. You know, and I'm not saying. I mean, look, I'm not judging people either. I mean, there are. I've seen horror stories in friends of mine, and and it's sad. It's just very sad. I mean, I've got friends that are brokenhearted because their relationship split up and they've lost their kids as a result. Other people are raising their kids and they have like no say. They don't even get to see their kids anymore. I mean, it's like in our court systems too. I listen to this. I listened to a lot of attorneys because I was in law and law enforcement. I've spent a lot of time in courts and attorneys. I've listened to a lot of attorneys talk about how the judicial system is completely one-sided 90% of the time, not always, but 90% of the time when it comes to, oh, we're going to give the woman everything and the man just gets absolutely nothing, but still has to pay for everything for all of them. You know what I mean? Like now there's a side of justice to that, and I'm not arguing that, but there's also a ton of abuse. And that's what I'm saying. I have a problem with, and our court system is completely almost completely one-sided when it comes to that. 9 times out of 10, I've listened to lawyer after lawyer talk about this, and if you disagree with me, go listen, look up some of those lawyers online talking about it, because they do, and there's horror stories. It's scary business, especially in our world today. I mean, the devil does everything he can to break people up. Now, that's not to say, things happen too, and you might try to do everything in a relationship you can. If the other person doesn't want to be with you, they don't want to be with you. You can't force them, you know. Um, I wouldn't want to force someone even if I could because their heart's not in it, Well, what good is that? I mean, the beauty about Christianity and is you give people freedom. If someone wants to be with Jesus is always about freedom. The devil's always about slavery. The devil's very happy to have slaves for wives or husbands or whatever, or children, whatever. Slaves, crack the whip. You don't have a choice. You do what I say, damn it. Period. End of story. Drop the mic. So Jesus is always about free will. And I certainly wouldn't want to be with any person that didn't have complete free will to want to be with me. I mean, why would you want to be with someone like that? I mean, but things are difficult. I'm not trying to be judgmental because people have had hard relationships, and I'm very happy, when God is also a way of writing straight with crooked lines, you know. And if two people have found each other after divorce or whatever, and are able to make a life together, hey, I'm and they found love. That's great. Just keep God in the equation. All good. Anyway, getting back to the story where I was. So this is the male energy, and remember the two energies come together just like in humanity when you have the husband and the wife and they create the child physically and spiritually. It creates the one. So going back to my example of the talisman, when you have the male energy on the left side of the talisman and the female energy on the right side of the talisman, what does it produce? Well, what's the biggest thing you read on this piece of paper? The one. That is an occult prophecy. That is a prophecy. That is a prophecy about the energy of Osiris coming together with the energy of Isis, his wife slash mother, incest, to create the coming of the one. And that is the God in which they trust, not Jesus. This, I claim, is a prophecy right in our face about the coming of the Antichrist. And what does it say on the Osiris side? Norvis Ordo Secolorum, which is Latin for New World Order. That's what everything's about. Notice in this pyramid here, notice how the all-seeing eye on the capstone is not connected to the pyramid. What does that mean? That means that this is a plan. This is a prophecy. This is a plan, but it is not finished. It's not in place yet. It's in the works because the final part of completing a pyramid is placing the capstone to seal the top. So this is and uh these masons that created this, by the way, this symbolism that I claim is a prophecy and a talisman of the coming Antichrist that represents occult mystical knowledge and esotericism. This was completely created by Freemasons. Now, you could say, well, that doesn't mean it reflects all of them. No, but it was created by Freemasons. It's they're the ones that created this. Why? Why is it in their teachings? All right. And the idea of the pyramid, of course, is instead of being a mason of a building, you're a mason of culture, of society. Okay. That's what they're building. This is about Osiris. Okay. Now, a little bit on Osiris, real quick. Osiris the was originally Nimrod, and I'm going to get into this and other stories that I do about the identity of the Antichrist. Nimrod built the towers of Babel. Remember that story, the Tower of Babel? That was Nimrod. Okay, so Nimrod was later worshipped by the Egyptians as the god of the underworld named Osiris. All right. Now, different people argue that the all-seeing eye here, some will say, is like the god Ra, but it's also been equivalent to Osiris, I would argue. And on the other side of that would be his wife counterpart, which is Isis. All right. So I claim that that's not an eagle, but a phoenix, or which rises from the ashes. You know that whole prophecy of the phoenix, and depicts Osiris. I mean Isis, which was the wife slash mother of Nimrod, if you know the story. All right, um, and later, and of Osiris. So later, Nimrod became known and worshipped by the Egyptians as the Lord of the underworld, Osiris, and his wife mother was Isis. And I claim that that's the two male and female energy depicted on the dollar bill. Now, the story goes that Nimrod was killed. He's god of the earth and vegetation, gave Egypt's civilization. Yeah, see, Nimrod created what became Egypt, as well as Nineveh, Syria, that kind of stuff. Married his sister, Isis. Well, it said his sister. I thought it was his mother. Um, but I don't know. It was incest either way. Osiris ruled Egypt and leaves Isis in charge when he's gone. Set is the brother of Osiris, and with 72 conspirators. Oh, wait a minute. Wait, you can't say that word conspiracy because in our modern age, people don't believe in conspiracy. So you can't say this is anti politically correct. Egypt is going to have to go back and rewrite their history. So 72 conspirators killed Osiris by chopping him into pieces. They distributed those pieces like all over. ISIS found most. She went on a ISIS went on a mission to find the pieces of her husband and try to piece him back together. And it's said that he became the king of the afterlife, the king of the underworld, as it said. All right. But so ISIS, the story is ISIS went around with a torch looking, searching for her husband. Now, here's the kicker. She found all the parts of her husband except one, his private member. All right. But she's searching in a torch around the world looking for his private parts. All right. So let's move on. Um, Here's another depiction I claim of Isis. Another name for her is Columbia. Have you ever heard of Columbia Pictures? If you're a movie freak like I am, then you've seen this thing a thousand times when you start up a movie. But Columbia, I claim, is also this woman. This woman that we call the Statue of Liberty, I claim, is nothing more than a depiction of Columbia, or also known as Isis, which goes by many names. But Isis, with her torch, is searching for the lost private member of her lost husband, the only piece she hasn't found, in order to put him back together. Now, again, this is a prophecy of sorts. Once she finds all the pieces of her husband, he can return from the dead to rule. Okay? So the Lord of the underworld can return here to rule. It's a prophecy. It's a prophecy. So and also the Statue of Liberty was given to us by the French Freemasons. Everything in this is Freemason. Everything in this is Freemason symbolism. All right. Now, moving on. What if I told you the obelisks are a phallic symbol? Uh, when the Egyptian god Osiris was cut into pieces, one part could not be found during his reconstruction, and this represents his missing. Well, he says Willie, but you get the idea. So the idea is the Washington Monument, which is a very large um, obelisk, is literally the if this is the Masonic version of Isis searching for the member for her of her husband, this is where it's located. This is her husband's missing member that she is in search of. And where is it located? One is in New York, where she's searching, but in Washington is where it's found. Now, something else I will point out. Notice the water right here in front of Osiris's penis. Okay. And by the way, if you do any research whatsoever on the Washington Monument, it is riddled with Masonic symbolism in every angle and every measurement on that entire building. No question, it's fully Masonic. But why? What is it? What is it there for? They didn't go through that kind of trouble and build that monument for no reason. And it wasn't just to say, "Hey, pat on the back to Mr. Washington himself." No. Now, I want to point out the water here. Notice the reflection of the monument in the water. That's significant. As above, so below. As above, so below. This is saying it's a spiritual connotation. What you see represents what you do not see. All right, which is the greater importance. You hide symbolism in people in plain sight. All right. So this is a picture just describing a little bit of the alchemy. It's stated in the picture. Alchemy is witchcraft. It's science, which oftentimes go together. Okay, um, and this explains some of that and how it's depicted. Another thing I want to point out with this is remember. So here's another angle of Albicus, right? So if we come here back to the dollar. Remember how we said you have the male energy on the left, the female energy on the right. They're two circles, and those two circles come together to form the one, right? So we say that with this abacus as well. Notice the two large circles, the male energy and the female energy. And notice how where they intersect and come together, they form the one. They form the one. All right. Also, if you go back and look at the pyramid, if you draw this star, common star on there, it literally spells out Mason on it, and you see you see the compass, right, with the G. By the way, Masons will say different things as to what that means. A lot of times they say that G stands for God. They'll say that you have to believe in God to be a Freemason. And at the lower levels, yeah, that's right. But at the higher levels, that God is Lucifer. It's only one. Now, here's something. Here's something that's actually cool about Masons. They hate people that don't believe in religion. They think that people that don't believe in religion are stupid. They respect Christians more than average people because at least they believe in something and they're not that stupid, you know? But they think that to not have a religion, to not have a belief in a God is stupid. The problem is theirs is the wrong one. Now, who runs the world? Often you hear the talk about the Illuminati and slash Freemasons or whatever. Some say the Illuminati infiltrated and took over the Freemasons. That could have been what George Washington was referring to when he said it was taken over and went evil. I don't know. But many times, many people have seen this. They are masters at infiltrating and taking over of institutions. Okay, masters of this. If you can control the head of an institution, you can control all the layers below it. So, how is it our politicians, our intelligence agencies, our three-letter alphabet uh, agencies, how have they gotten so corrupt? Because they have been able to take over the leadership positions in those, and not just there, but in corporations as well. And that's how they conspire in the dark to work together to steal power. They don't believe in elections, they believe in rigging the race. That's why when Bush and Kerry had an election, it ultimately didn't matter who won because they both were playing for the same team. Imagine that. Now, here's something else. There's a book that was used to be around a long time ago. You don't see it as much today, talking about how they were trying to create the New World Order. Everything I believe and have been told by God is these people are trying to create a New World Order. If you zoom in on this is really hard. I'm gonna have a hard time trying to read any of this. I try to keep it on my phone. I accidentally deleted it because I ran out of space for pictures, but because I just had too many. If you can zoom in on this and read this for yourself, it basically talks about how there was a conspiracy to destroy morality and Christianity in the United States and in the world so that they could bring in their new system. That's basically what it says. They knew that in order to defeat God's protection, they had to destroy Christianity with immorality. Where you have immorality, you have chaos. Where you have morality, you have God. Basically, I mean that's how it comes down. Now on the Freemason symbolism here on their apron, okay, that's a big symbol in their occult systems and their secret society. Just notice some of this. You have the pillar on one side, also with the male energy depicted at the top. You've got the female pillar on the other side with the female energy depicted at the top. You've got the all seeing eye above it. All right. You got the all seeing eye above it. All right. Very much like the Aleister Crowley picture. And I do not believe that that's a coincidence. He was a Freemason, by the way. He absolutely was a Freemason. This is the same symbol that we see on the apron. I do not believe by any measure that that is a coincidence and for any reason. Okay. Um, that doesn't mean, I will point out, as a friend of mine pointed out to me before the show, that doesn't mean that Freemasonry believes everything that Aleister Crowley does, or that Aleister Crowley believes everything that Freemasonry does. However, I will say it's not a coincidence. They're both using the same symbolism, and they're probably both serving the same master, getting the same agenda. You know what I mean? Evil doesn't always have to agree or even have the same ideology to perform the same mission. Does that make sense? You know, same with good. Um, Here's something important I want to point out. This is very important, and this is why I'm pointing this out. Um, Actually, you know what? I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit because there's something else I want to point out before I come back to that because that's a bigger point. Okay, so I showed how in Washington it's full of like Masonic symbolism. Well, there's a lot more, and I'll show some of that. Going back to the dollar bill, people are quick to point out you have the little owl uh, hiding here in this corner. Okay, a bigger picture of that. Now you can see the owl much better. Many claim that that is absolutely a, um, a symbol of the owl of Moloch at the Bohemian Grove, which Alex Jones and some filmmakers just snuck into and got back from, not Jones, but the filmmakers. Jones is famous. Alex Jones is famous for sneaking into Bohemian Grove back in the day and filming their cremation of care ritual, where they kill an effigy, which means a fake person, not a real person, but it's still disgusting. They murder and sacrifice a fake effigy of a kidnapped Israeli child or person. That was the depiction there. And the ceremony was called the cremation of care. The reason why is they were asking for their consciences to be numbed for them to perform the duties that they have to do in serving their Lord or Moloch, all right, which just serves Satan. But but that said, see, Christianity is the opposite. We always want to have our conscience well developed, and we want to obey the conscience, because that's our connection to doing, that's our connection in part to doing God's will. Our conscience. If I do something wrong, my conscience says, John, man, what you did back there, that was horrible. That was bad. You need to go fix that. That's my conscience. And that's my connection with God, saying, hey, you messed up. You need to go fix this. You know what I'm saying? So conscience is important. Moloch was also depicted in the Old Testament as a bull that people offered child sacrifice to. He demanded child sacrifice. But in modern times, the Druids, they call it, worship him as an owl who has the ability to see in the dark at night what others can't see. Conspiracy. But that's the nature of how evil works. Also in Washington, we see depictions of the owl of Moloch. And this was created by Freemasons. Why would Freemasons create the symbol of Moloch, as well as all the other symbols on the dollar bill? Here's another picture of that from a different vantage point. You still see the owl in Washington. Many point out that there's also a pentagram that's created with the street system in Washington as well. Although I think there's one edge of that pentagram not fulfilled, I believe, correctly. But again, that could be a prophecy of, hey, this is not complete yet. But for people that are naysayers that might say, John, Masons are not evil, they're not bad, blah, 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 blah. They don't serve Lucifer, they don't serve the devil. Well, I disagree. They do. At least that doesn't mean all Masons are bad, but the people at the top that are in control, that rule over the pyramid, they are evil and they serve Lucifer. And to make that point, I bring up a very famous Freemason named Albert Pike. All right. And Albert Pike admitted that Freemasonry ultimately is about serving Lucifer. All right. Satan. All right. Here is something he says, to which we must say to the crowd is, we worship a God. See right there, he's saying we manipulate people and their members. But it is the God that one adores without superstition. To you, the sovereign grand inspector general, we say this, that you may repeat it to the brethren of the 32nd, 31st, and 30th degrees. The Masonic religion should be, by all of us initiates of the high degrees, maintained in the purity of the Luciferian doctrine. Now, check this part out. If Lucifer were not God, would Adonai, which is a word meaning God, Jesus, culminate, spread false and harmful statements about him? Yes, Lucifer is God, he says. All right. And there's a quotation from where this is quoted from him making the statement. So right here, he states that Jesus, who he's saying is evil, because he's claiming that Lucifer, Satan, is actually evil, that he's spreading bad, Jesus is spreading disinformation. Jesus is spreading conspiracy theories against Mr. Innocent Lucifer, Satan himself. Oh, bad Jesus, bad. Really? Really? Okay. This dude believes this stuff too. And he says that that's what's taught in the higher levels of Freemasonry. Here's his book, Morals and Dogma, which, by the way, I have a copy of. So Here's the book, Morals and Dogma, about Freemasonry, written by Albert Pike. And right here in his book, he talks about Lucifer being God. All right. Right here in his own book. And later, he goes on to say they created the first, the second, and the third world war, that they orchestrated it. Remember me talking about the Hegelian dialectic? They claim that they created all those wars. In fact, I couldn't fit, you know what I'm going to do? I couldn't fit some pictures on here because I had too many. But what I'm going to try and do real quick, see if I can't add two more, um, where he's making the connection to the wars. So see if I can add those real quick without taking too much time here. Boom, bada, boom, boom, boom. Give me just a second. It's been a while. It's been a long day for me, I tell you. Boom, got one. It's loading up. Got two. And booyakasha. I might add one more while I'm at it. That went pretty fast. Sorry to take just a minute here. I think it's really important. So I'm going to delete that picture to make room, and I'm going to add one more just to put the nail in the coffin, if you will. Okay, and it is this numbskull right here. Okay, so Albert Pike goes on to say, as do most occultists, Albert Pike had a spiritual guide who dispensed divine wisdom, and enlightened him regarding how to achieve the New World Order. See, that's what I'm saying. Everything here comes back to the New World Order. The spirit guide is a being who meets someone who has given themselves over to the practitioner of the occult. However, people are blah, 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 blah. Okay. Yeah, that's not the one I was looking for. But anyway, yeah, it just means they're evil. They serve Satan, and they're creating a new world order. All right. Here's the one. Oh, great. I can't even read it. Basically, you might be able to pause this on yours and blow it up when you can, and take a picture of it and blow it up. This is where he talks about, and this was like back in the 1800s. All right. Where, let's see, this one gives a date. No, it doesn't. Okay. He talks about how they artificially created the First World War to achieve their objectives. And they planned out a Second World War to achieve their objectives. And they planned out a Third World War to achieve their objectives. All right. This one, you can read it. The Third War must be fermented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentor of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. A war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Now, in that other quote I was giving you, he said something similar, but he said a little different. He said that they had to use Christianity against Islam and other forces in order to annihilate themselves, to destroy each other from the playing field. Okay. And also, what I wanted to add here to that is this, from David Rockefeller: all we need is the right major crisis, and the nations will accept the New World Order. All we need is the next major crisis, the right major crisis. And the nations will accept the New World Order. That's a powerful, powerful statement. So again, Hegelian dialectic, they cause the crisis and force us into their predetermined solution, which is, think of what's going on in the world right now. World War III has already started. Once it goes hot, which will be a very bad day for all of us, they want to use this war to destroy all the existing powers like the US, all right, and other world powers, so that they can create their one world government and rule over all the countries that destroyed themselves in the war. So we go to war with Russia and China. We all pretty much destroy ourselves in that process. And then the one world order comes in and cleans everything up and says, hey, we're the last man standing. And we're the only ones left with the weapons, the power, and we're taking over and creating one world government. Kneel before Zod. And one last thing on that point. The great Henry Kissinger, who is one disgusting piece of sack of shit of a human being, sorry for my Cajun language, military men are just dumb, stupid animals to be used as pawns in foreign policy. That is what they believe. They don't send their own sons and daughters to fight in wars. They send yours. And right now, Congress is debating to pass a new law to send your sons and your daughters into wars so that they can be chewed up and spit out as cannon fodder, and they don't give a flying F about your family, about your children, about your daughter, about your husband, about your child. They don't care. Let me read that again. Military men and now women are just dumb, stupid animals to be used as pawns in foreign policy. They truly believe that. We are the cannon fodder. We are the useless eaters. Those are the terms they call us. All right. That's why the Great Reset that I often talk about, it's about the culling of the herd. Something else they say. The Great Reset is not about, us getting through health crisis. The Great Reset is about restructuring the governments of the world to create the one world government. Now, the reason I bring all this up. Oh, one other key point I wanted to bring up here. This is an event that took place at the Vatican in 1917. There were Freemasons at St. Peter's Square in 1917, and they were doing a parade and a march at the Vatican and in front of the Vatican, the street in front of the Vatican, and they were holding up signs and chanting, Satan must reign in the Vatican. The Pope will be his slave. Satan must reign in the Vatican. The Pope will be his slave. Okay. Now, the reason I show that is because people today think, oh, Masons aren't bad. They're not evil. Wrong. You've got leaders in Freemasonry admitting that they serve the devil. They serve Lucifer. They serve Satan. And that's where their heart is, their intention is. And that they're manipulating the underlings that don't know better. And then two, there's actual accounts of them protesting, saying they have a satanic agenda to infiltrate the church and replace him with a servant of Satan. And by the way, I claim that's happened. Enter Francis, who I claim is a globalist Freemason. But that's for another show. Can only do so much in one. There was a saint, a Catholic saint, that witnessed this and made a recording of it in history of this event that took place at the Vatican. That saint is this man. This man is Saint Maximilian Kolbe. All right. Saint Maximilian Kolbe is an amazing, amazing saint. He was from Poland. He started a religious order of Franciscan friars in Poland, and it grew so large, so big, that this religious community, religious order, Catholic religious order was so big, they had to have their own fire department, their own airport, their own lumber mill, all monks that ran, because it grew into a city, a town, and it became known as the Neopokalana. Now, what happened is, let me tell you a side tangent about this great saint. Do you remember the bombs that the U.S. dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki? Well, one of those, I'm not sure exactly off the top of my head which one it was, but this man, and this man normally didn't have a beard like this. The reason he has this beard right here is because he went to open a house in Japan, and in Japan they respect people that have long beards. So he grew out. He normally shaves, but he grew out this long beard for his time in Japan. but he wanted to build a monastery in Japan. And the story goes, the government or the local city ordinance or whatever you want to call it there, they wanted him to build the monastery on one side of the mountain. And he says, no, I can't do that. I have to build on the other side of the mountain. Okay. And they said, no, you don't understand. It's much more difficult on the other side. We don't have roads there. It would cost you like 10 times more in resources and manpower and a lot more money to build on the other side. You need to build it here. We'll even give you a discount. And he's like, no, you don't understand. I have to build it on the other side of the mountain. So he did as even though it was more difficult and cost more money, he ended up building the monastery where he wanted to on the other side of the mountain. Well, then comes the bomb in World War II, and his monastery was saved from the effects of that bomb because he built it on the other side of that mountain. And that tells you a little bit about this man. Now, let me tell you something else about this man. You know, the Jews always talk about the Holocaust and the concentration camps. And yes, they were real. That did happen, and it was horrible. And it was horrible that any Jew suffered that. Like I told you in my last episode, when I worked for Beverly Dean in Hollywood, she was the manager of Jim Caviezel, who played Jesus in The Passion of Christ. She was a great woman. She had problems, but she was an absolutely great woman. She was a holy woman, and I loved her to death, and I miss her greatly. That said, um, Beverly Dean, I told you she had a landowner. I'm drawing a blank. It's been a long day. Her a landlord was a woman that was in the concentration camps in Germany when she was a child for being Jewish, and she showed me the purple tattoo of numbers on her left forearm that when I asked to see them. Well, as I also said, and that's horrible. And thank God she was able to get away and have a better life. And she was very nice and very sweet to both me and especially to Miss Beverly Dean when I worked for her. And I appreciate that. Um, but that said, um, Jews were not the only ones who died in concentration camps in Germany. And that's important to know. They get angry when you say that. And I don't know why. It's not taking anything away from them. It still happened and they still suffered there, but they weren't the only ones. It wasn't just because they were Jews. I had family that were in concentration camps because they were Catholic. This man right here, his town that I said that this religious order that was so big, they needed their own airport, their own fire department, their own lumber mill, okay? All of monks. It was raided by the Nazis. It was destroyed in a single day. And this man was taken to Auschwitz. He was imprisoned in Auschwitz. Also, there was a famous female Catholic theologian that and professor that was also Edith Stein that was also taken. I don't know if it was Auschwitz, but one of the concentration camps. It might have been Auschwitz as well. But she was taken to one of the concentration camps where she also died. But this man, he was when one person tried to escape, they would eliminate other people. And when someone tried to escape or had done something wrong, I believe it was because they tried to attempt to escape, but they'd done something wrong, and so Nazi soldiers were randomly picking out people in the crowd to get in a line that were going to be executed for what one person had done wrong. Okay, by their standard, trying to save your life is not doing something wrong, but it is hard when it gets other people killed. You know, and it's a way they try to keep you in line. But anyway, one man started crying and said, "No, please don't pick me." After they chose him, because he says, "I have a wife, I've got children. Please don't pick me." And when Maximilian Kolbe heard this, he stepped forward and volunteered to take the place of the man who had the wife and children. And he told the guard, he says, "I am a Roman Catholic priest, And he says, I'm willing to take the place of this man to die so that this man can live. And the soldier agreed, and the Nazi soldier agreed. He took Maximilian Kolbe, and they put them in a room and they starved them to death. Well, Maximilian Kolbe, being a good, holy, religious monk and priest, would have done lots of fasting. So his body's used to not having food for longer periods of time, and which is a common practice amongst monks, even from the first century on. I mean, Saint Anthony in the desert, first century monk, he only ate a piece of bread, and a small piece of bread, like every 4 days. And that's it. And he did that for I want to say years at a time. That he lived on that. So everyone died from the starvation, which is a horrible way to die. I don't think there's too many good ways to die, but so everyone died from the starvation, but Maximilian Kolbe was still alive. And so finally, after they decided they wasted too much time, they gave him a lethal injection, which did terminate his life. And I've studied a lot of his writings, and man, the man was a super intellect and was brilliant, but he also had a very loving and gentle heart. All right. And he is a recognized canonized saint in the Catholic Church, and deservedly so. He's a very good and holy man, and I wish I could be the tenth of what this man was, and just to aspire to be a tenth of what this man was in his life is just amazing. Anyway, okay, getting back, I just wanted to show you there are accounts of the Freemasons being involved in dark stuff. Now, all of that was in preparation to go back to my final point, which is this again. I'm claiming, remember, we made the statement here in his book, Hail Ye Twin Warriors, about the pillars of the world, for your time is nigh at hand. And I claim that going back to 9/11, and remember, I showed the prophecy, or what I'm claiming as a prophecy of a talisman of male occult energy and female creating the one, which I say is a reference to their God that they trust in, the one, which is a reference to the coming of the Antichrist. Now, furthermore to this, going back to the Twin Towers, I say that this is what we see that took place at the Twin Towers. And remember, I showed the the apron, okay, and how it had the same symbolism as Aleister Crowley with the two towers and the all-seeing eye. Now, what I claim, and I'm not a Freemason, they can argue with me till they're blue in the face. Um, I claim that with those two towers here and what Aleister Crowley is depicting here is to fulfill this prophecy here. Hail ye twin warriors, the pillars of the world, for your time is nigh at hand. And it's a prophecy I claim of this, where the two open the doorway, open the gateway for the coming of the one who is the God in whom they trust. I claim that this is the same thing, and they show the intersecting circles, how the two become the one, fitting into the Masonic who built this, and in going back to the Egyptian lore of Nimrod and Isis. And I claim, so these two pillars is opening a doorway, a gateway, if you will, an interdimensional portal through occult knowledge and ritual to open a portal, a gateway here, which you see depicted right here. Here, also another Masonic image. You got the two pillars with the male energy on one top. One's the earth, by the way, which is male. The other is the moon, which is female. Those are the circles. So you have the two pillars, and you have the all-seeing eye above them. But what do you have going on here? Now you have the staircase and the arches. You have the open gateway. And what is that open gateway for? It is for this man also depicted in other artwork between the two pillars and the staircase. This one with the all-seeing eye above it, to open the gateway, the door that we see opened here, with the staircase ascending down from another place, with the man standing there. And that man is, I claim, the one God in whom they trust, that is on his way here. That is on his way here. So take that same symbolism, all right? That same exact symbolism of the open gateway, the ascending staircase, all right, or descending. Um, and I claim that this is the same prophecy we see here with these words that Aleister Crowley wrote in his book of the law. Hail ye twin warriors, about the pillars of the world, for your time is nigh at hand. Now, I claim these represent those two pillars of the world, all right? Monuments, but also a part of New York, the New York right, power of the world, new world power. And I claim that these two towers were destroyed, were struck down on purpose, so that the two could form the one, so that the two could become the one. Now, also notice the almost helical symbolism in the structure of the new tower, almost like you took a double helix and merged it together. Also, a depiction of the two becoming the one, the two becoming twisted together, if you will, to form the one. The one. The two form the one, and that is the God in whom they trust. That is the coming God, the coming Lord, that they're putting all their effort and work in to build the one world government for. When the two become one, you will be in the kingdom of heaven. America as we knew it died on September 11th. It's now 9/11 that the one world order was born. I truly believe in my heart and my intuition that this is the truth. I feel it, even though it's not common knowledge. I believe that this man was depicting the future that would take place of this event and what it symbolizes. It symbolizes the coming of the reign of the one world government in its final stages for the capstone on that pyramid. And it symbolizes the coming of the one, the Antichrist, who will be the head and rule over the one world government as the one leader of the entire earth. Now, some of the smoke, many pointed out that they see like a devil looking face in the smoke. All right. Even on CNN, they talk about this. There's a devil face coming out of the smoke. Now, you can read, you can say that's just coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence. Also here in the other tower, it shows almost looks like a dragon emerging from the ash of the damage due to the buildings being brought down. All right. I don't think that these are just small time things. I think this is full of demonic witchcraft that was involved in all of this. So I don't think it's not surprising. I would be surprised if you didn't see this stuff involved in this. In fact, here's my take. I claim that 9/11 wasn't just an inside job so that we would have an excuse to go to war for a never-ending war that the American people really didn't want or be a part of. I also claim it wasn't just an excuse for a power grab with the passing of the Patriot Act and the National Defense Authorization Act, with the creating of new agencies well, given tremendous power um, in our country and the loss of freedom that goes along with that on every level. But I also claim that 9/11 was a mass public satanic human sacrifice ritual displayed to the public for the bringing in of the reign of the Antichrist in the final stages of creating the one world government. I claim that's where we're at. And I claim that that's what it was for. And that was it. That's what it was all about. Not to mention, if you look at the bottom of that tower, remember, as above, so below, right? How many times have we said that? By the way, this is called the One World Order Tower. Go figure. Wait, I think I got a statement of that here. Yeah, One World Trade Center. The One World Trade Center. They sure like those words, that terminology. So see, they're giving you the terminology, and I believe that reinforces what I'm claiming. Now you have the tower here, and below instead of above. But remember, we also said as above, so below. All right. Below this tower, what do you have? Boom! In the subway below the tower, you have the all-seeing eye in a mosaic. Hey, how coincidental is that? Look at that. On the floor in the subway, underground, underneath the tower, you have the all-seeing eye. You can't make this crap up. So that's my treatise on 9/11. Um, and no one has to believe it, no one has to follow it. But I tell you, my heart says it's the case, and and I believe it. You don't have to believe it. I believe it. And I've never heard anyone else talk about this about 9/11, that it wasn't just this horrible physical thing that happened, but I claim it was a mass public satanic human ritual sacrifice. I claim is exactly what it actually was. And is part of the reason they used their resources to pull this off. And our country has not gotten any better since. We've only gone downhill quicker, faster. In fact, around this time, I went to go visit New York, and right after this, and and they had a clock with the national deficit, and it was like 9 trillion. And I was like, we could pay that off in one generation. But now, in just a few administrations, and double or triple that under Biden alone, and we're at such an astronomical level, our children's great grandchildren have no hope of paying it off, which only tells me they know that they're planning to collapse the system to bring about their new system. See, they're planning to bring about it. And Bill Gates talks about how, you're going to have this nice AI, and and it's going to speak directly to you, and it's going to give you orders on what to do. And if you follow those orders, you're going to get digital money put in your account. Yeah, you're going to get rewarded with money just for doing what it says. But what he doesn't tell you is you're also going to get punished if you disagree and don't want to obey those orders that the AI gives you because you're the slave. And if you're too bad, it just cuts you off and turns off your connection to the AI. And then guess what? You can't have a job. You can't travel. You can't buy toothpaste. You can't buy medicine. You can't buy toilet paper. You can't buy diapers. You can't hold a job. I think I said that when you can't travel. You can't do anything. You cannot function in society. But don't worry. We'll have a truck that comes and picks you up and takes you to a nice little thing called a re-education camp. Now, a few people have asked me to share my own personal story, and I don't have time to do that tonight. I will do it soon. Hopefully, I will get to that. But part of why I believe this stuff I'm showing you is because these are things that God showed me and told me in person many years ago. So I have a little bit of a leg up on a lot of other people. If you want to think anything I'm saying may or may not be right, I claim that it's the truth. I claim what I'm telling you is the truth. And I'm claiming that I've got reason to know why. God showed me these things, and he told me to warn his people. And that's why I'm doing this. The last time I did a show and talked about the Freemasons like this, I got kicked off my channel and I started receiving death threats from these people. Then they called me back and said, "Oh, John, you had us all wrong. You had it, you misunderstand us." And I'm like, "Oh, what part of death threats did I get incorrect? Please explain that to me. Because if you people are good, you wouldn't be saying I'm making death threats or I'm gonna go after you or I'm gonna target you or I'm gonna do anything to hurt you. In America, you have free speech and you can believe what you want and you can say what you want. Doesn't mean anyone has to agree with it, but you have the right to believe it and you have the right to say it. So I'm telling you, because God has shown me things that I don't know for what reason or purpose, other than I believe God wants me to warn people. And that's why I'm doing this. That's why I spent all day working on this and skip, even eating dinner or anything. Not that that's a giant sacrifice, but can be. But that's why I'm doing this show, and that's why I'm putting out this information, and that's why I'm saying some stuff that some people might think is crazy or off the mark or whatever. And you're fine to believe that. I'm just offering up a different possibility that I believe is the truth. All right. Um, and I would say pray about it. And like I said, research, but two things on that. 90% of people won't research other than a quick Google search or a fake fact checker, which dude, you can take almost everything a fact checker says and the opposite is truth. They're all paid by the left. And some of these people are like, what, really? The old cat lady is going to be the fact checker on reality? Really? And when she's not getting paid to do that, I'm okay. Come on. But anyway, this is important stuff. This is important information. And as I started the show, people have to understand we are born into a war of good and evil. And we are in that war. And you can't fight a war that you don't know that you're in. You're in it. Welcome to the party, pal. As Bruce Willis said in Die Hard. Wait. You got my little Die Hard lighter, you know? Come out to the coast. Have a good time. Anyway, yippee ki Anyway, I hope that some people might have learned a few things about this. 9/11, 100% was an inside job. And unfortunately, it breaks my heart to say because I am a patriot and I love my country. I serve my country, my family. I come from a family that served the country. Um, but unfortunately, high levels of positions of our government and multiple levels of our government, politicians, Congress, media, um, three-letter agencies, intelligence agencies, media. I mean, I said that one. Now, judicial system have been corrupted and taken over. Have been corrupted and taken over, and our country is very close on a precipice to us losing all rights, freedoms, liberty, free speech, or any of it all entirely. There was a movie that came out this last week. It was a Christian-made film called The Disciples. I encourage people to try and go see it if you can. If not, buy it online when it comes out. Try and support it. And it was about a time in the near future where the Bible was ruled a hate crime and was made illegal. And the government gave you a new version of the Bible, their version that was all, whitewashed, but wasn't authentic or truth. And people were giving up their lives as they were chased by federal agents to try to get real Bibles into the hands of people in churches so that their church would have a Bible. And sadly, this could be a very real future that we're all facing right now. In America, our people have had, for the most part, very easy lives, but all that can change instantly to where we don't have anything anymore. I mean, Carl Schwab always talks about how you're going to own nothing and you're going to be happy about it. That doesn't sound pretty. And he believes it. So do world leaders. You know, the world leaders think that we are the problem, the people, and that they're the solution as long as they subjugate all of us, you know? And ultimately, it comes back to the war of Satan, Lucifer, trying to destroy humanity to get back at God for what he lost. Don't become evil because we're surrounded by evil. Try to draw closer to Jesus Christ. Jesus is the only solution to any of this, to all things, all problems. Look, AA isn't the solution. Now, it's not to say don't go if you need it or that helps you, but it's not the ultimate solution. Jesus is. Um, going to shrinks, not the ultimate solution. Hey, if it helps you, fine. Jesus is the solution. If you're down, you're depressed. Jesus is the solution. If you don't have money, you don't have a job. Jesus is the solution, not drugs, not alcohol. You know, I don't claim to be any kind of perfect person. I've had plenty of problems and plenty of mistakes in my life, plenty of things I regret. But I understand and recognize when I've done wrong and I try to do better. I try to be a better person. I try to speak truth. I try to live by my word. I try to have a spine in a world of people who don't have spines anymore. I try to stand up for what I believe is right, even if everyone else disagrees. That doesn't matter. I don't care if anyone agrees with me or or tells me I'm good, bad, ugly, whatever. Doesn't matter. All that matters to me is what Jesus thinks and Jesus believes and what I need to do to try to serve him. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, all that's important is getting into heaven for us and for our family, our loved ones, other people. And all other people are our family, regardless of race or color. And every race has trash, especially mine. I can say that. Anyway, look, thanks for listening to the show. Sorry to I don't like the show to be about politics too much. It's a heavy theme, and there's a lot of that in our world today. I would rather talk about things that are funner to talk about, like cryptids. I get excited talking about cryptids as long as it's not me in the story. You know what I'm saying? But but I apologize for talking about this. But this channel is about talking about truth and conspiracy, and there's none bigger than this right now, and none almost more important because it ties into the Antichrist. So please keep each other in prayer. Please keep me in prayer. Please share the show. Please like it, share it, spread it to friends. Get around the algorithms that don't like me delivering these messages and this type of topics. Please pray for me, especially against attacks and stuff like that. And pray for everyone in the community that they become better people, and especially other show hosts and all, that we can all get along and work together instead of just turning everyone and friends into enemies, which is just stupid. But that's what the devil does. But you know what Christians do? They do the opposite. Try some. I told a person the other day, man, let go of the hate in your heart. Let go of the hate. Let go of the anger. Let it go. It doesn't hurt anyone else. It destroys you. Forgiveness, it helps others, but it helps you more. And by the measure you forgive is the measure God will forgive you. So you better doggone be on your knees forgiving people. you know no one in my life owes me anything, and everything that's gone wrong in my life is not someone else's responsibility. It's my fault. Whether it is or not, I accept responsibility. Is my fault. I don't blame anybody for any problems I've had in my life, and other people shouldn't either. you know this part of the snowflake generation. Everyone else is not the problem. I'm the problem. G.K. Chesterton one time won an essay contest with one word. That the question was, what's the biggest problem in the world right now? And his response was, me. And he won. One word. He won the whole essay contest. But it shows you the power of that man and the wisdom in that one word, me. You know. Anyway, like I said, draw close to God, pray, keep the lights on. Everybody have a good night and a good weekend. God bless all of y'all. Keep everybody, each other in prayer.